Last, you were there last night?
No, when I was down there.
Oh.
When they were the launch rocket to
And then he pushes
the pattern.
Good evening, Vacaville. This is the regularly scheduled City Council meeting for February 11th, 2025, 6 p.m. in the Vacaville City Hall Council Chambers. Do I have a roll call?
Council Agency Authority Member Stockton.
Here.
Ritchie.
Here.
Silva.
Here.
Freeman.
Here.
Wiley.
Here.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Chapman.
Here.
Mayor Chair Carley.
Here. And if you are able, please rise for a moment of silence followed by the pledge. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, approval of the agenda. Mr. City Manager, I think we have a change tonight.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, item 8A is an alpha, will be continued from tonight's meeting to a subsequent meeting in the future.
Undetermined at this point? Okay. So with that change, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. We have no presentations tonight, so we'll move straight to the consent calendar. We have items A through, let's see. Got A through G. Any member of the public or the council wishing to pull an item for discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and Vice Mayor seconds it. All in favor? Aye. All right, now we're going to move to business from the floor. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on any item that's in our jurisdiction that is not on tonight's agenda. So with that, I'll open it up to business from the floor. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. The people of Vacaville on Saturday, the 22nd, 11 a.m. to noon, are going to be holding a prayer circle out in front of City Hall. I'd like to invite each and every one of you. We're inviting all residents of any denomination with everything going on in our state, natural disasters, economic state, everything going on. The price of eggs, we're going to be praying for a number of things. First, we're going to be praying for our city, county, state, and federal law enforcement officers and firefighters. We're going to be praying for the wisdom and health of our civic leaders and of all our city employees, and prayer for our city's prosperity and protection from disaster. So I'd personally like to invite each and every one of you, as well as every citizen of Vacaville and the surrounding area, and that would be Saturday, the 22nd, 11 a.m. to noon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the meeting he was talking about is non-sectarian. Any religion can show up. We are invoking the Creator and His blessings upon the city, and for the hope that we can all be patriots, all love the country, all be thankful to the Creator God who gave us our Constitution, as is outlined in our founding document, the Declaration of Independence. It's open to everybody. We're going to storm heaven with thanks, praise, and the hope that we can make things better.
Thank you. Good evening.
We're at Backdoor Bistro, so like, oh, I gotta get that.
Now we're all jelly.
Yeah, it was good. Good evening. My name is Carrie Dowling, and I'm part of the Centennial Park Neighborhood Association, concerned with the Centennial Park 5-phase project. And specifically tonight, I want to address phase 1 of the BMX bike park. And let's remember that the survey we did of our neighborhood shows that 50% want it left as a natural refuse. We have spoken multiple times now regarding our concerns as follows. 1, impact to the neighborhood. Noise increase for more people on the walking paths, disrupting the homes that back up to that part of the park. People traffic increasing, meaning more trash left in the open areas of the park. 2, who's going to monitor this bike park considering the current budget restraints? If you don't have this lined up now, don't start this project and volunteers don't count. Who's going to maintain this bike park? If you don't have this lined up now, don't start this project. And again, volunteers don't count, and you know that. Safety issues. We have seen an increase of motorcycles and e-bikes in the back part of the park coming dangerously close to pedestrians, making it really unsafe for families to enjoy the pathways. And this is only going to get worse with the addition of the bike park. Paint guns are being used on the Canadian geese. I just learned about this today. And wildlife are being killed by firearms and left for the residents to see, as I spoke about last time, or someone else of the association spoke part about the raccoon that got shot in the head and was left in a gun box. So in closing, we have spoke to you folks multiple times now. When are we going to get an email response addressing these concerns? Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, Council. My name is Caitlin Alden. I live at 496 Stonewood Drive in the Stonegate neighborhood. I've lived in the city of Vacaville for 34 years and at my current residence for 4 years. My husband and I purchased our property in 2021 with our 3 small children, and we're attracted to the neighborhood's low density, tranquility, and exceptional safety record. Over the last 4 years, our neighborhood has exceeded all of our expectations. In December of 2024, the home directly across the street from me, located at 491 Stonewood Drive, was sold off market to an investor by the name of Andrew Lamb. Mr. Lamb purchased the property for $585,000, nearly $200,000 under market value. In January of 2025, I met Mr. Lamb, and he confirmed that he was going to be turning the property into a sober living home for people who are recovering from substance addiction. He currently owns multiple homes in the city. On his Instagram page, Mr. Lamb advertises that he will house up to 12 people in the 5-bedroom, 3-bath home. This provides us with rough ratios of 2.5 people per room and 4 people per bathroom. Since our initial contact, the video that he originally posted has since been removed from his page. I would like to highlight again for the council that the property is intended to be a single-family dwelling located in a residential neighborhood. I spoke with Mr. Lamb about the concerns myself and surrounding neighbors had about his intentions with the property, which included parking availability for 12 cars plus their guests, increased traffic on the street where children frequently play outside, quality of residents living in the home, impact on surrounding property values, and overall safety of our neighborhood. Mr. Lamb reassured me personally that all of these concerns would be non-issues and that I was, direct quote, putting the cart before the horse. When asked about parking, Mr. Lamb stated that only 20% of his residents have cars and assured me that there would not be 12 cars parked on the street. The property is not located near a transportation center or any public services. When asked about the impact on neighborhood safety, Mr. Lamb assured me that the home would be housing women and children. However, on his Instagram page, Mr. Lamb advertises that the homes he runs provide housing for people who have been recently incarcerated and also offers temporary housing to unhoused people with a history of addiction. His entire social media platform is built upon teaching people how to run these homes without needing to be licensed in order to make a large profit. He is adamantly proclaiming that he is protected by fair housing laws and that cities and municipalities cannot do anything about this because it is a protected class. I am not, nor are any of my neighbors, putting the cart before the horse. Since Mr. Lamb's house is not regulated or licensed by the state of California, there will be little to no supervision of these residents. The neighborhood is concerned about the impact this will have on city resources, specifically the increased number of calls for service from our public safety department. My goal tonight is to make the council aware of an unregulated business that is being run out of a residential home under the guise of affordable and fair housing. This home will prove to be a public nuisance.
I'm going to ask you to go ahead and end now. I've listened even longer. What I'd like to do afterwards is have you meet with our staff and fill in some of the gaps in the details so we can better
Sure.
understand what this issue is, but I appreciate your comment tonight.
Can I wrap up my last two sentences? Would that be acceptable?
That would be acceptable.
Thank you. The home will prove to be a public nuisance and will negatively impact the security and quality of the residents in my neighborhood. Will the city and its council choose inaction, or will it choose to be proactive? I hope the council takes into consideration the concerns I have brought to you and acts swiftly by taking preventative measures to ensure the safety of our neighborhood and its residents is maintained. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to direct you to both of our police department and our community development if we can actually have a conversation to get more information. Thank you. Good evening.
My name is Jerry Hardesty, and I am a member of the Solano County Civil Grand Jury. My associate member, Stacy Lou, is with me here tonight. February is designated Civil Grand Jury Month. So that's why we're here. The Civil Grand Jury system was established in the California State Constitution in 1872. We operate under the authority of the California Penal Code. We serve as an investigative body. We are not an adjudication or law enforcement group. We can examine any aspect of the county and city government, school districts, special districts, prisons, jails within Solano County. The topics for investigation come from citizen complaints as well as suggestions from grand jury members. We're here this evening to let everyone know that the Solano County Civil Grand Jury is recruiting new members to serve for the 25 and 26 session. Our application period is now open, and we've brought applications with us for distribution. Grand jurors serve for a one-year term from July through June, with the option of serving a second term at the pleasure of the presiding judge. As for qualifications, civil grand jury applicants must be citizens of the United States, over 18 years of age, and residents of Solano County for at least 1 year prior to being sworn in. Applicants must have sufficient knowledge of the English language, a very flexible schedule, and reliable transportation. Grand jury members are expected to have adequate time, approximately 20 to 25 hours a week, to devote to the effort, be able to work well with others, and be interested in community affairs. Good analytical and writing skills are highly desirable. A basic level of computer or word processing skills is also helpful. Grand jury members do receive a small stipend from the court, as well as mileage reimbursement. To learn more about the civil grand juries in general, visit solano.courts.ca.gov. You will also find an online application form there. I can leave these brochures.
Yes, please do.
Here.
You can leave them over with our city clerk.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I just want to bring up once again what went on with the BEST facility at Moss Landing, which of course everyone knows all about. And I'm curious if any of you have approached Assemblymember Wilson or Senator Calderon about bringing forth some state legislation to change the law that will allow them to force the BEST plant upon us here in the county, since we now have irrefutable proof that these are dangerous chemical waste dumps and nothing more. Thank you.
Thank you. I got you there.
Okay,
Good
thank
evening.
you very much. Whoa, thank you very much. I just wanted to follow up on that. I've just read several articles in the fire journals on the toxic exposure to both civilians and firefighters in Southern California due to the exponential increase of lithium-ion batteries, the gases, and of course the runoff, which are actually highly toxic. And I mentioned at your last meeting that the Department of Transportation, the emergency response guide, which guides both fire service, all responders actually are supposed to be familiar with it, as an entire separate response guide now for lithium. both fixed facility and then large vehicles that you're supposed to use to protect yourself and others. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no one else. I'm going to go ahead and close business from the floor. And while we can't really comment on what's going on with the BEST facilities, I can assure you that staff is in discussions with what that looked like now that there is AB 303 out there. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to item 7, public hearing. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This first item before you tonight is a public hearing for a resolution denying an appeal of an approved planning project. We have Eileen Lee, an assistant planner, and Albert Eno, a senior planner from our community development department, making a presentation tonight.
And for the audience, this is the only screen that's working tonight, so we apologize for this not being on.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. My name is Eileen Lee. I'm an assistant planner in the Community Development Department. And tonight before you, I will be presenting the Brown Street or de Colores Park. To provide a summary on the project, it consists of a neighborhood park on a vacant 3.4 acre site. The project requires a minor design review and a tree removal permit and is broken up into 2 different phases. Phase 1 will include a 2,500 square foot recreational building, 600 square foot outdoor stage, a picnic area, sports court, and 16 parking spaces. Phase 2 would include a 10,000 square foot office building for the Housing and Community Services Department and 29 parking spaces. On October 31st, 2024, the initial approval by the Director of Community Development was issued for the project. And on November 12th, 2024, the project was appealed. From there, on Planning Commission, on January 21st, 2025, the Planning Commission approved the appeal and reaffirmed the initial approval for the project. And on January 30th, 2025, the Planning Commission decision was appealed to City Council. This evening, the grounds for appeal includes that the city was not complying with the Vacaville Municipal Code and that the masonry wall should be installed in phase 1 and not phase 2 of the project. Here on the screen, highlighted in red, is the project site off of Brown Street and abutting the Solano County Health and Services building along East Monte Vista. To the north is existing single-family homes, and to the east is the Paradise Cove Manufactured Housing Park. Here are a variety of active uses oriented towards Brown Street, which includes a playfield, multi-sports court, stage, and the recreational building. And phase 2 is identified in yellow, and we'll have a closer look to the different phases in the next few slides. As part of staff's evaluation for the minor design review, we confirmed that the project complies with the general plan as it provides a new park facility and protects the site from other incompatible land uses. The project complies with all zoning regulations, including minimum setbacks, building height, and parking requirements. The city complied with the environmental review process and prepared a ISMND, which was circulated from September to October of this year for public comment. And the city conducted public outreach, including a new project notice, a neighborhood meeting about the project, a meeting notice for the PC appeal, and as well as a notice for the City Council appeal this evening. On January 21st, 2025, the Planning Commission conducted a hearing for the appeal and voted 6-0-1 to deny the appeal and uphold the director's initial approval from October. An appeal was filed on January 30th, 2025 with the city clerk with the grounds that the city is not complying with the municipal code and a masonry wall along the eastern boundary of the site should be installed in phase 1 and not phase 2. As our city's response, we had analyzed the project design, and for phase 1 of the project, that boundary does not abut the manufactured housing park of Paradise Cove. In review of the project phasing, there is a 70-foot buffer between phase 1 of the project boundary and the Paradise Cove manufactured housing park property line that's shared with the site. In addition, staff ensured that the designs of the active uses such as the informal playfield, the multi-sports court and stage were oriented towards the Brown Street side to ensure there's a reduction of noise impacts. Here on the screen, shown in red, is phase 1 of the project site, which includes a variety of amenities such as tot lots, a stage, multi-sports court, and informal play area. And there will be a masonry wall that would be installed as part of phase 1 improvements along the single-family homes to the north. And phase 2 is highlighted in blue, which would include the 10,000 square foot community services and housing building, as well as the additional parking spaces. And a masonry wall would be installed along the eastern boundary along Paradise Cove. As part of phase 1 improvements, phase 2 would be entirely fenced off until phase 2 improvements would be conducted. To conclude, in staff's evaluation of the project, all public comments were considered. Staff considered different alternatives to address public comments. Noise activities for the project are oriented away from residents and along to Brown Street. There is a separation of a 70-foot buffer between the park improvements for phase 1 and residents. The funding approved by City Council was approved and is limited, and scope of phase 1 improvements do not extend to the perimeter of a manufactured housing park. And with this, staff's understanding was that the masonry wall should be deferred to phase 2 as phase 1 does not directly abut a manufactured housing park. This evening, staff's recommendation is that by simple motion, the City Council approves the resolution denying the appeal and affirm the Planning Commission's reaffirmation of the Community Development Department's, the Community Development Director's approval of the Brown Street or the De Coloris Park minor design review and tree removal permit at the east side of Brown Street, subject to the conditions of approval for the project. This concludes my presentation. Thank you. We are welcome for any questions or comments.
All right, is the appellant here tonight? All right. Sir, if you'd like, if you have a presentation or you would like to provide comments, this is not going to fall within the typical 3-minute period. This is your appeal, so I'm going to give you the opportunity to make a presentation.
Right there. As you can see, phase 2 is in blue and phase 1 is in red. If you notice, phase 1 actually goes up to the mobile home park. So it is within just a few feet from the homes within Paradise Cove. One of the things that was directed last time, it was not sure what the code is for masonry walls in the city of Vacaville. And I attached a part of my appeal, the code. And it's interesting for the city of Vacaville that code real quickly here. I can see.
I think it's chapter 14.
That's correct.
09.
That's correct. And it's interesting with that code. City of Vacaville, the first item on requirements for a masonry wall in any type of construction is for a manufactured home, housing park, a mobile home park, and that's what we are. And then the second, if you go down 2 more spots, anytime there's a park, you need to have a masonry wall around the park. So based upon the municipal code of City of Vacaville, this project negates the code. It does not abide by the code. Another item on here is I kind of took a step back thinking, why would you require a masonry wall around a mobile home park or a park? One of the issues with a manufactured housing, the houses are very thin and they're not built to the same standards as a regular residence, regular home. they catch fire very quickly. We had one of our homes go up in smoke within 5 minutes. Fortunately, we had the people around there had fire extinguishers, and everyone ran to put it out. And also the Vacaville Fire Department came right away. It's subject to fire. The prevailing winds come from the west. If during the construction, we're going to have a ton of dust. And one of the issues with not having a masonry wall is the dust will be going over in that area. I mean, that's one of the, I should say, one of the requirements you have to have during construction. Another item is sound attenuation. According to the municipal code of Vacaville, one of the reasons why you have the masonry wall is because of sound attenuation, sound mitigation. So during this time, when also when the construction is going on, we're going to have a lot of noise, and all we have is just a simple chain link fence, and there's going to be no noise attenuation. One of the things I appreciate also the notices that were sent out. However, none of the notices were sent to any of the residents in the park. We didn't find out, I didn't find out this until about yesterday that 240 notices went out to everyone all around, but the people most impacted by not having this masonry wall, none of the notices were taken out of there. They did not know this was happening. Fortunately, we have some of the people here tonight that says, hey, we didn't even know about this. We had no ability to put our comments. I realize that the people in this area don't have as much ability to get out and be attending meetings and be politically involved, but they deserve the same right to hear and find out what's going on with this park. We are extremely happy for this park, but we also want our sound attenuation, the privacy, as people look into the backyards, because these homes are like 5 feet away from the existing chain link fence. And so I request that this project that's in phase one, which is awarded at like $18.5 million, I believe, that we're able to get and re-look at, see what we can come up with. Right now, we have $18.5 million for a 2,500 square foot building. My background's in construction and budget estimating. I think we can carve out an additional 160,000, which I estimated for the wall. The current estimate right now for the city is 350,000. So I request that we relook at the budget, that we include this into the first phase. We welcome the park, and we are going to do everything we can to support it. But we really would like to have our privacy, our security, our fire protection, and sound attenuation. That's all I have. If any questions, comments?
There might be more questions and comments, but thank you.
I will be around.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And I'm sure there'll be others who will ask, but from a staff's perspective, it looks like, how far back does the north masonry wall extend as proposed in phase one? It looks like it goes all the way to the east, except for half of one residential lot and one full residential lot. Is that accurate, or is that rendition not to exact specs?
Hi, good evening. So to the north, where the red of phase one ends to where the Paradise Cove Manufactured Housing Park is, that is where the 70-foot buffer begins. So yes.
And that 70-foot buffer is to the fence line separating the mobile home park?
Yes, that is correct.
As far as the code goes, can you help us understand as a council? We appreciate the work of the Planning Commission and all that it takes to make sure that the commissioners understand what those rules and regulations are. But help us understand in this appeal process, because it does seem, with what's attached, it does seem to suggest that it's required at the perimeter. It doesn't say a 70-foot buffer. It says at a manufactured housing park. and that's in 1A. And then 1C is adjacent to community facilities such as parks. So as a city, we're saying that we agree that a wall needs to go there. We're just, from an appeal perspective, we are, the Planning Commission voted that there is an exception here because there is another phase to this. Can you explain more about the code and also the decision-making process that led to this appeal?
Yes, thank you for that question. So I'd like to draw everyone's attention to that portion of the code that's in the packet that says required perimeter masonry walls. And where required is important because it says a decorative masonry wall at least 6 feet in height shall be provided along the perimeter of a project site. And that's the key word, is what is the project site that we're discussing? It is phase 1. Phase 2 is being deferred. There's nothing that's being improved for that area. So when we look at the project site, we find that we are complying with it because the portion that's within phase 1 does not abut the manufactured housing park. The northern portion of the project that is going to be built does abut single-family homes. Phase 2 is going to remain untouched. It'll be maintained for overgrowth of vegetation by our public works maintenance crews, but it'll be fenced off, and it'll include chain link fencing with plastic slats to provide additional privacy. When we look at the requirements for a masonry wall, it's mainly based off of noise attenuation. Is there a need to provide a wall here to protect the adjoining uses from noise and activities? And so what we found when we were looking at all the noise producing activities, like your basketball courts, your fields that are going to have kids screaming and playing while they're playing soccer, your stage area, all of those uses were oriented away from the eastern edge of the project. They were moved all over to closer to Brown Street for the sole purpose of trying to provide further distance from those noise-producing activities. And so with a combination of that, there being a buffer, and the buffer that I want to draw attention to, it's 70 feet for that small little peninsula that extends out. It's much greater for the portion that is inclusive of the footprint where the 10,000 square foot building would be. And so paired with that additional expansion, and then the fact that all these other uses are oriented, there wasn't any extraordinary circumstance that would say, okay, yes, here's the project site, it's in phase 1. It doesn't extend to the abutting, so we're okay. But are there any other concerns related to noise that would warrant maybe even looking at having a masonry wall along the manufactured housing park, even as part of phase 1? We found that the additional buffer that's provided and the fact that all the uses were oriented towards Brown Street, that there wasn't any unusual circumstance that warranted having a masonry wall with phase 1.
So based upon the appeal, as I'm reading it, it says constructing a masonry wall along the manufactured housing park perimeter is a legal requirement. It's staff's position and supported by the Planning Commission that by phasing it, the city is meeting its obligations to a future wall that is required by code. Is that the position of staff?
Correct.
So the issue isn't that it's not required by code, it's that this is being bifurcated in 2 phases.
Correct.
If it was all being done at the same time, the city would then require a wall.
Correct.
The appellant in his application required, okay. The concern that I think is raised by Mr. Strem, is that right? Okay. Is that phase 2 has no projected funding and no projected start date. Phase 2 is an empty promise, an indeterminate future promise with no funding does not satisfy the legal requirement. So it, as I read it, and maybe if there's clarification from the appellant, it is written that you believe that phase 2 isn't, there's no plans anytime soon, and so therefore it's your words, not mine. It's an indeterminate future promise with no funding and doesn't satisfy the legal requirement. Can you speak to, from staff's perspective, what is the plan for phase 2? And is there a timing sequence to when this would take place?
currently, right now, there's no plan for phase two. We haven't forecasted what it is, but one of the things I wanted to mention that we had also discussed with the appellant after the planning commission meeting is that the trigger for phase two of requiring the masonry wall isn't left to the construction of a 10,000 square foot building. If parking were extended for the sake of, maybe we realize that more parking needs to be provided, that's one of the triggers that would require an additional masonry wall. So if there is a concern that phase two of the project is unachievable because it includes a 10,000 square foot building, we wanted to make sure that it was aware that even an extension of the parking would require the installation of masonry wall because you are then extending portions of the project to those adjoining land uses.
So would it be fair to say that while this is a proposed plan, even though there's been discussion about phasing, phase two doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to look the way it does as proposed. It could be something else, such as a phase two for parking, phase three, maybe a building or not. So this is open and indeterminate for the future.
Correct.
I think the other question that I had was, what is the city's estimate? I think our estimate, according to the appellant, was higher. His estimate was 160 for the wall. Staff was 350. Can you speak to that?
Good evening. The staff's estimate working with Public Works for the evaluation of this wall would be approximately $340,000 associated for the construction of this wall for phase one.
And this park this is a city park. And I realize we all know that it is, but for the record, I just want to make sure in this appeal that we're making sure to the public, this is a city park proposed?
Yes, that is correct.
Right. And so phase one is funded, or at least it will go out to bid, correct?
Correct. That would be the next step of the process.
All right. And so we have chosen as a city to separate this because of funding and phasing, which has come before the council. I'm aware of that. If we were, while we understand, and I'm going to throw a hypothetical at you, if a builder was coming to propose something within our code and was wanting to phase this, and yet their suggestion is that phase two has no future plans and no money, how would the city look to that, and how would that be viewed through the planning commission as far as being indeterminate?
Are you speaking for the bid process?
No, not the bid process, the approval process. In other words, we have determined ourselves that we're going to phase this, and so we have taken the position that that's our phase two, and we've approved it for ourselves. The hypothetical, if it wasn't the city's property and it was some third-party project that came to us with code and an appeal process like this, with no phase two funding or determinate project, how would our process view that? In other words, are we making an exception for ourselves, knowing that it would take a funding priority from the council in the future, which, as you say, there is none, and sitting here, I know that there isn't. It would be something that we would like to do, but phase two does not exist.
I think we'd probably interpret the code similarly for an external property owner for that particular case. There might be some.
So similarly, like how?
We'd probably say the exact same thing, where the project site doesn't go directly up against it. But usually in those private developments, we would be maybe asking the questions about, okay, what could be done if they can't build something else? In this particular case, we have a vision for what that other area might be. So maybe the discussion with a private developer would be, if not a formal development project, would it be additional green space or things like that?
Mr. City Manager, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to add, hopefully some clarity, is that this is really kind of cause and effect. And so it's a mitigation measure that goes towards a cause. And in this particular case, as the planning department is mentioning, that the cause to trigger that wall and that line is physical improvements in that area, whether it be the building or whether it be parking or what have you. But because it's not included as part of this phase, that mitigation measure is not therefore needed. And so that's a consistent practice that we apply throughout, our public and private development projects. It's related to CEQA and mitigating the effects of what is being proposed on that property. So in this case, since phase 2 is not proposed at this time, the mitigation measures that go along with that potential impact are not required at that time. Should it come in at a future phase, then that would trigger the necessary improvements for the mitigation.
Okay, yeah, thanks for clarifying. And I just look at this map though, the north wall extends to all the residents except for half of one lot. And so are we really going to stop a wall right at half of someone's rear property, or would we extend it all the way through a property line? I mean, because there is a play park right there. Yes.
Yeah, it would stop at the point that's identified on the map in between the halfway point.
I'm going to open up also for questions from the council if there are any. I see Councilmember Stock.
I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. If this park would have been built before the mobile home park and the surrounding homes, is it the position of the city that they would not require the developers to build these walls around this park? I just want to make sure I understand that correctly because I felt like it wasn't clear.
To repeat the question, if the park was built first, would the developer have to build the wall?
Yeah, so the folks that develop the north end and the trailer park, would a condition of approval for those projects be to require them to build these walls that border the park? First question.
In reading the code, it says the wall would be required at the perimeter of a manufactured housing park, except where abutting another manufactured housing park. So if a manufactured housing park was coming in and they were abutting a public facility, they would be required to put in a masonry wall. However, if they were abutting another manufactured housing park, they wouldn't.
But if they're abutting this park, they would, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's my first question. The next question is, in the meantime, you say that there's I think it says that there's a chain link fence with slats, correct? Is there any plan for there to be access, like a gate or something because you're going to keep all of this blue area fenced off, correct?
Correct.
So will any of the families that live in the mobile home park have access to the park, or are they going to walk all the way around?
They would walk around. They would walk towards East Monte Vista.
And how many square feet is this blue section? Do we know?
I do not know.
Roughly? Okay. But that is going to be fenced off. All of that area is going to be fenced off completely until God knows when phase 2 gets approved. So no one will have access to that. Will that all be fenced off as well, like even on the west side of that blue line and the south side of the blue line? Because
Correct, yes.
But what will be in there?
It's going to be a fire access, emergency access vehicle route.
Or potentially a pass-through for people to either set up a camp or to do stuff like that, correct? Because it's obstructed, right? You have slats in the fence, so it's an obstructed view, correct? On all sides of that blue line?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And there is no timeline, I think you said no timeline or projected start date or projected funding for phase 2?
Correct.
That's all I have for questions. I have a
Councilmember Wyland.
Thank you for the information. I just have a question. Is there a masonry wall on the east side of the Paradise Cove?
You can come forward, sir.
There are some that are, there are some masonry walls, other spots they hadn't. The code with that requirement came into existence in 1972. So after 1972, they had to put the wall in. So on the east side, we do have part of it, masonry wall. The park actually, I believe, is approximately 1950s, is one of the first mobile home parks in Vacaville. So that requirement of the masonry wall came into existence in 1972.
All right, so I was wanted to drive by today. So is the only entrance there on East Monte Vista, you drive through that field, or is there a street behind that I
No,
didn't
there's
see?
not.
So there's one way in, one way out?
That is correct.
All right, so that was my question about the masonry wall on the other side.
Thank you. Thank you. No further questions. Councilmember Freeman?
Yes. Thank you for the presentation also. I'm considering what 70 feet would look like in here, and it's probably about 50 feet across here, so add about another 20 feet. And that's going to be what's separating people with very thin windows and very thin walls. I know that construction is going to make noise regardless. So, and dust is going to, well, hopefully be mitigated during construction. So there, right now, all that is a future designation for parking, is that correct?
Correct.
That will be part of phase 2 also?
Correct.
Thank you for that question. If we move a few slides prior, it will have a breakdown on the slides for how many parking spaces will be designated for phase 1 and phase 2.
So phase 1 is the 16 parking spaces?
That is correct.
And then how many parking spaces are going to be accommodated by phase 2?
Phase 2 will include 29 parking spaces.
So I'm just thinking, you know, along some of the same things that I've heard in here, if the city of Vacaville owned the property on the other side of that fence and somebody was going to come in and build, I would think the city of Vacaville would require who wanted to come in and build to put up a wall, right? That would be, that would cover us under, 1409-200. So, and I understand that there's no money to do this right now, but it just seems like there should be money to do this right now. It should be, this is the time to do infrastructure. I've driven around some new developments that have gone in, that are going in. I've looked at some other parks in the community. There's walls around them made out of masonry. Even in construction projects, new housing development, that's one of the first things they do is they go in and they put retaining walls up, they put walls up, that's part of the infrastructure of the development. So I think that I have a heart for the people that live on the other side of that fence. And I'm thinking about the noise that it's going to cause. 70 feet really doesn't do much. And I'm really concerned about the space that's going to be left, such as Councilman Stockton was saying, and you yourself were saying. I don't want that to become an issue for Vacaville police or paramedics to get in there, or for Public Works to go in there and have to clean it out, and I start thinking about people cutting holes in the fences. I even think about people that live in the mobile home park that want easy access to the park and just cut a hole in the fence and come on through. If I lived there, I'd probably do that. I don't, maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's easy access, so, I would hope that we could come up with something better than that. I'd love to see the parking get done now too. I know that we're talking about money, but I don't see how it benefits our neighbors. I don't think that we're being good neighbors by not making this a priority. So that's my big thing. It is in the code. And so we're asking for a variance, or, we're asking for this to be put on hold. If I knew that there was money put aside for phase 2, just like when a developer's coming in and they're going to be doing a major development, and they have a phase 1 and a phase 2, well, then they have marks that kick into gear what needs to take place before you get to here. So many houses or so many residences are built, and then this happens. Well, we don't have that here. There's nothing, and I just don't want to see that sit for 10 years. This has been a long time getting this project off the ground, and I think that it deserves to be done correctly the first time. So that's my input.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open up to the public for comment. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Mayor Carley, thank you for the question you posed, because that's the exact question I had, is if the developer wasn't the city, and this is a project, phasing it doesn't separate the responsibility. Also, being sensitive to being older now, and I considered the options in all my whole life as an EMT and medic and fireman and all that. I have a heart for what conditions older folks have to deal with. Fire comes into that field, it's going to go into those mobile homes. We're going to do like Southern California, go, you know, if we had just built that wall, it could have saved some lives. The other part of the question for you, Mr. Mayor, is I'm confused. Are they going to build the parking, or they're going to leave a vacant lot, put a chain link around it, is the proposal that's current, and then at some point put in a parking spaces and then build the masonry wall? You can answer that at some point. You know, it kind of bothers me when my city twists and turns in the wind to try and get around something. And yet our expectation as a public is that we don't want private developers twisting and turning to try and get around something. We're doing it ourselves. For goodness sakes, it is prudent and responsible. And I know most of you probably already agree. I'm watching your faces best I can with my eyes. You're going to put the wall in. So I don't know what we're doing here. It's the right thing to do. Everybody knows it. We're trying to be diplomatic and cautious about our words. I'm pretty simple. I can't be that clever. For goodness sakes, just put the masonry wall in. It's the right thing. Maybe it'll save somebody from, and I can guarantee that whatever you call people now that are homeless, they're going to be in that field and they're going to start a fire and you're going to go, dang. For 200,000, we could have saved those people's home and their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
The folks along the trailer park, my lot is on the back side, on the north side. But my concern is you're going to put those parking spaces there. And why would you put parking spaces next to the back of homes? On Brown Street, there is no homes. That's where you should put the parking spaces. That's where you should put the lean-to with the picnic tables. Because what's going to stop a homeless person from camping out in back of, you know, those cars or that recreational, that structure you're going to build, and looking into my lot? I have the largest lot on Circle Drive. I have a fifth wheel in the backyard, a 25-foot trailer. I have 4 sheds with lots of expensive painting equipment in them. And my concern is that the homeless or criminals are going to jump that fence and come right into my yard and cause me a major disturbance. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you for sharing.
All right.
Good evening.
Evening. So it's well known that I am not a fan of the park, but the park is moving forward. And so my concern is for the residents that are there. Chiefly among that is my concern for all Vacaville residents, homeowners in particular, is insurance costs. And as many have pointed out, you've got a vacant area there, fenced off. You're going to have homeless there. We know it. There's no point in beating around that. We live in California. If there's a vacant spot, they will find it. The first time there's a fire there, the insurance is going to go up. The second time there's a fire there, the insurance is going to start to get canceled. And many of these folks are, excuse me for saying it, but they're elderly. They're on fixed income. They're retired. An increase in insurance costs, whether it's renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance, could destroy their family budget. I would like to appeal to the council to approve this man's appeal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Seeing no one else, I'm going to go ahead and close the the public comment portion of this item, as this is an appeal. If there's anyone on the council that still wishes to speak, now would be the time for your light. I also have some comments. Councilmember Wiley.
So it's my understanding that right now, it's an empty field, and have there been some homeless there now? Yes. So I think that this is, when we do phase one, there's a lot of improvements to that. Why would people be there versus any other park? So I just, seems like if it's really, we're making improvements to the area, I don't know that there's going to be a whole bunch of people, jumping the fence. And then if you were talking a while ago about not going around the chain link fence, if you have a masonry wall, then it's the same thing, people from the Paradise Cove wouldn't be able to go to the park. So I did watch the planning committee too, and I saw a lot of discussion. So it would be great if we could have the masonry wall all the way around it. But because of funding limitations right now, I think we have to decide, how we can do that if that's what we need to do. And since it does seem to meet the rules of being 70 feet up and I know it will be allowed during construction because we have a lot of construction in District 6 with, all the new houses. So there are times people complain to me about, the noise and the construction and the dust. So yes, during construction, there will be some noise and some dust, but after the construction is over, I don't think there will be a lot of noise to abate other than just living beside a park like in other parks in the city. So I just wanted to raise those questions because money is an issue. And I think there is a plan for phase 2. So it seems like we would want to have a parking light there when we could.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, the difference between what the lot looks like now compared to what it would look like after phase 1 is you're going to have a fence blocking the view of where people are going to habitate. And now you can see them, police can drive by and see them. People from some of the homeless outreach groups can go out there and make contact with them. If there is a fence blocking their view, they're going to be out of sight, out of mind. The right thing to do is to build the fence. It's 100%. I guarantee you if, and we heard it, thank you for the honest answer, but if this was being done in reverse, we would absolutely make sure that they built this fence. It would be asinine that we would not have them build this fence, knowing the impacts that it would have. The wall, the masonry wall, excuse me. And so, and I just think it's the right thing to do. I also think that that wall should have access for the families and the people with kids that live in that mobile home park. I know that we're kind of limited on what we can talk about today, but this is another reason why I feel like we're trying to get something done and do something instead of do the right thing because of funding. And I get the balance that we need, but this is precisely the reason why I think multiple phases, maybe additional phases, is needed because it's important that we do it right. We're so caught up in trying to get it done that we're going to miss out and we're going to negative. My fear is by not building this masonry wall, we are going to impact their quality of life of the surrounding neighbors. I mean, this is a place that people want to have a commercial kitchen and sell things and have different events throughout the year where people are congregating in larger groups and movie nights and different. It's going to create noise. It just is. And that's okay if it's done right. So I'm all for doing it the right way. I think building the masonry wall is the right thing to do.
Could you put that slide back up that shows the park? Councilmember Fremo?
Yes. I was just going back, looking at that again, and I was thinking about the parking, in the future. And I know a lot of work has gone into this, and I'm new to city council, so I haven't had any kind of impact on this. But when that masonry wall goes up along the east side, eventually, and then we're going to have parking along there. I'm just thinking about something that a member from the audience talked about, parking out towards the street, which just makes a little bit more sense to me, because I know that when I was young and I had a car and we were going to the park, we were looking for the place in the back. And so you're going to have cars that are going to be starting, stopping, doors opening and closing. And so just another consideration for the neighbors on the back side there, just thinking about them. And I disagree with Councilmember Stockton. I wouldn't want a door coming in there because I think that the flow would be, it would be very nice and accessible for us to get into the park, but accessible for the park to get into the mobile home park. So I don't think I would want that. But anyways, yeah, I think that we need to come up with a way to find a way to get this wall built.
So, well, what's before us tonight is not a funding issue, and obviously we're hearing preferences. Part of what the appeal is to understand what, what is the ask, and is there enough information to overturn and support either staff's recommendation to for this appeal to be denied, or to accept the appeal and to overturn the decision that was made from the Planning Commission through Community Development Director. I think it is important that, probably no different than at the Planning Commission meetings. I mean, you all can sit up here and say, well, why didn't you do this? And everyone is drawing their own design, right? I think it's fair. I'm gonna ask, I know we've already asked questions, but it's important to understand that the concept was, in my career and in my history working with the city, is this was identified as a place to put our housing department. Housing department is, in office space that's definitely in need of major overhauls. And so it just made sense to be near the county building where services could be provided. So the cohabitating approach to this project, I commend our staff for putting it together, because that's what it was all about. In fact, there's an area that was going to be the Boys and Girls Club. So here we have a project in front of us, but the appeal is only about the wall. But the parking spots, the reason why they're back there, correct me if I'm wrong, is because the housing department go there. So other than that, it could have been a different design. And in the future, there's no guarantee that this design will last. It could be anything. It could be nothing but park, or it could just be more landscape with additional path. It could be a larger park, and the city in the future could abandon it because the city doesn't have any money set aside for it. It's simply at this point a vision. Phase 2 is a vision. But phase 2 as a vision for housing could be somewhere else at some point. We're gonna do a roll call on this appeal just so it's clear. Sure.
Sir, you said that nobody was notified in that particular area. So my question is, so thank you for clarifying. So you were notified. This has been a long time. I've got a lot of public feedback from this particular area. How did you know about it to where you were able to file an appeal?
Sure, I'm gonna just go ahead, sorry. This is for public record. I'm gonna have you come to the podium.
In the past, when we've gotten notices, they've gone to every single residence. So when I got our notice that went to our business address, we made the assumption, which was incorrect, that it was handed out to everyone, everyone within the mobile home park. So it wasn't until yesterday when I started going through who was notified, I saw that 240 people were notified, and then I realized there was no one in our park that was notified.
Okay, so what prompted you to file an appeal?
When I found the plan that did not include the masonry wall. When I saw that plan, it's like, we're in favor of the park, but we do want to have the masonry wall. So that's why I made the appeal.
I'm just curious, like how. So you were informed. You didn't engage. Did you engage in any of the numerous public meetings or anything to that
Yes, I
effect?
did. From the very beginning, I said, hey, I like it, but my comments were, we need to have a masonry wall. So that was part of the emails I was sending back in what, April, May, June timeframe.
So your correspondence is all private between you and staff?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so what made you look into the plan to see that there's no masonry wall?
When I looked into the public record, the public notices that were coming out, when I saw that the consideration of having phase 1 and phase 2 rather than one whole park, that's what prompted me to say, hey, they're not building the masonry wall.
Okay, and then so the noise that comes off Monte Vista and that commercial product, that commercial development area, and the noise off of the large parking lot, which is pretty busy at times, those aren't issues?
No. In fact, if you were to go back there, it's very.
I grew up in this neighborhood.
Okay, it is actually very quiet back. I'm kind of surprised too, because right on our east side is how to say, I call it a little mountain. So we go up about
all the commercial properties above
exactly
that wall.
And so we don't hear much. And as far as the commercial property, it's pretty much storage, and there's not a lot of industrial noise that's going on in that side. And then the backside is residential. We do have an occasional airplane goes over, but that's just kind of a low roar. It's kind of like that. And so it's a very quiet location.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Stockton.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the appeal and to build the masonry wall.
Second.
All right, so motion and a second. Roll call. Discussion. Sure. Yep.
So I find it very interesting that the folks who strongly oppose this particular project, I'm actually encouraged because now I hear you guys want to fund more. So what I would think for council to consider is to deny this appeal, number one, and then when we come back and talk about a priority session, we'll look at adding in a phase 2 that includes this, but being a completely separate item. And then now that it sounds like there's additional support from council or candidates who spoke out about phasing it, we can actually do that as a separate phase.
Thank you for your comment. We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
No.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Yes.
Councilmember Fremont?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
No.
Vice Mayor Chapman?
Yes.
Mayor Carley?
Yes. So the appeal has been granted. And so what this means, you can explain the next step of the process. I believe that what would happen is this would just go out to bid as is, but including both sections of wall in an RFP. Is that correct?
Well, correct, yes. As part of the entitlement approval, the project park has been approved with a modification that includes a masonry wall along the border shown in blue.
Yeah, there can be separate discussions down the road, but creating a separate pocket that you're completely fencing in, SEPTED and security always is, from a police perspective, from the street to the back wall, you can see across. And so I think that there's ways to do this that beautify the park and that it serves all the purposes. So I appreciate that. Our city attorney.
If I can just clarify that the motion included approving the project with the addition of the masonry wall pursuant to upholding the appeal.
Yes, and because the question could really come into play. Look, there could be a reduction in cost if you're eliminating a chain link fence that's zigging and zagging through the park. You're just building the rear masonry wall, and so just factor that in. Yep. So you have what you need?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item, the business.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. This next item is 8B. Off this calendar. So that next item is a resolution for professional services agreement for engineering services for the East of Leisure Town Specific Plan Project. Albertino once again is here for a presentation.
Good evening, Council. This item before you tonight is another stage in the saga of the East of Leisure Town project specific plan. This is a engineering services contract we're going to be talking about. And what we're asking City Council is to authorize a city manager or a designee to execute a professional services agreement with the Ardura Group for an engineering consultant services in an amount not to exceed $219,000 for engineering services for this East of Leisure Town growth area specific plan. Background information, we talked about this originally on the January 28th project when we were talking about the fiscal. One note on this schedule change that we had recapped on the background was on January 28th of just last council meeting, City Council authorized a new contract for fiscal services. And as part of that presentation, we mentioned that we were working on an engineering contract, and so that's what we're bringing back for City Council tonight. This shows the extent of the project area in the yellow hatched area where we have 3 development entitlements from 3 property owners that are looking at developing in this growth area. A reminder on the scale and the scope of the project includes 3 property owners, 550 acres that could produce potentially around 5,000 units. There's a number of different entitlements associated with this overall project, including a number of different technical studies, traffic, water, sewer, biological that have to be prepared for it, as well as a rigorous public outreach process involving community engagement, workshops, meetings, and public hearings. For a project of this scale, we need help with this, and that's where consultant services come into play to help city staff with timing and materials for the project. So council previously authorized 4 contracts to help with this process. With planning, specific plan preparation, environmental impact analysis, and most recently, the fiscal impact analysis. But all of this is being provided by funding by the applicants through a funding agreement that was signed with the applicants. The developers are going to fully fund this entitlement process, including this contract that we're talking about. The initial deposit that's provided by the applicant goes for the ongoing funding for that, and they'll provide additional deposits as we continue to expend those monies that they provide. There's no impact for the city's general fund. The engineering contract specifically, we originally received a proposal on October 23rd of last year, and talking with the Ardura Group as well as our Public Works and the applicants that would be funding for this. We worked with the Ardura Group and obtained a revised scope of work on February 4th. That was part of the reason for the delay from the 28th. So the contract came in at $219,000. The key deliverables that this contract is going to be helping is assisting our Public Works Department with the rigorous review process that goes into reviewing drainage, traffic, infrastructure designs that are being proposed for this large-scale project, as well as reviewing documents such as an environmental impact report and the annexation process. This engineering group would also be helping with a review of specific plan documents, tentative maps, and as well as any design proposals from the applicant team. So with that, we have a recommendation that by simple motion, City Council would adopt the subject resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute a professional services agreement with the Ardura Group for the East of Leisure Town Road Growth Area Specific Plan.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. The only question I had is the reduction in the scope of work doesn't in any way restrict, inhibit, or somehow reduce what our desired outcomes were going to be.
And thank you for the question, Mayor Carley. When the developers met with staff and with the Ardura Group, we ended up realizing that we didn't want to allocate funds to the very distant future phases after a few more years when we're at the annexation phase, which brought the overall contract amount down a bit. The other thing is everything's on a time and materials basis. So if we get into this project a year and we're using more time than we expect, we would have a conversation again with the developer team and would ask for more funding.
Yeah, great, thank you. I don't see any questions. I'm going to open up to the public for any comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Councilmember Ricky.
I motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, motion is second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. We will move right along. I think we're on presentation of the strategic plan. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you say, this is an update. We've been overdue a little bit, so we are presenting a strategic plan update for you. We have Georgianne Meggersmith, our Assistant City Manager, and Rika Gidry, our Program Manager, with the update for the council's consideration.
Good evening, Mayor Carley, Vice Mayor Chapman, and members of the council. Like the city manager mentioned, it has been a little while since we brought a strategic plan update to you, so I want to go over a little quick background. In May of 2020, City Council adopted a 5-year strategic plan covering fiscal years 2021 through 2026. And in February of 2021, City Council prioritized the 9 strategic initiatives and added Goal 5. The strategic plan has a 3-tiered approach. The goals provide the overarching framework for the plan. The strategic initiatives, which were developed through SWOT analysis, are each linked to a corresponding goal. And then the implementation strategies really serve as the action plan for each of the strategic initiatives. There are 5 strategic plan goals that you'll see here. We'll be walking through the updates in the order that council originally prioritized the initiatives. Doesn't mean that any goal is more important than the other. It just was a mechanism for us to help focus the work. So in this slide format, the strategic plan goals are listed at the top. The initiatives are right below, and then the implementation strategies are the pins along the road. We'll be highlighting a few updates along the way, and which you'll see in the gray block on the right-hand side of the screen. So to get us started, in partnership with the California Biomanufacturing Center, the Economic Development Department hosted Bioville in 2024, a 3-day event to promote life sciences to Vacaville residents. And over 250 people attended the career fair and over 100 attended the film viewing. To develop a citywide business incentive plan that fosters economic diversification, the pilot program, Destination Downtown, was launched in August to provide grants for storefront improvements. And a fee deferral and reduction incentive program for targeted industries is in development and expected to come before council this June. A development review process improvement initiative kicked off in July with Baker Tilly, and a process improvement workshop is actually taking place this week, and staff anticipates sharing the results within the community and the council this spring.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. So our priority number 2, maintaining effective and efficient services. The city relaunched its financial transparency in April 2024 to continue expanding upon best practices. Through interactive charts, graphs, and tables, the public is now able to view the city's revenues, expenses on the website. The next step would be to add more detail for users to explore with. During the months of May and June, staff held 4 budget sessions as part of the fiscal year 24-25 budget adoption process, enhancing the city's efforts to educate the residents and other stakeholders on the financials and tax-related concepts that affect the city. To operate new ways to generate additional housing, the city will be partnering with a nonprofit housing developer. The intent is to propose a transformative home key project at the Quality Inn & Suites at 1050 Orange Drive. The development aims to convert the existing motel into approximately 80 to 90 units of permanent supportive housing. In partnership with public agencies, nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and other key stakeholders, another implementation strategy was to develop and implement a homeless action plan that addresses sleeping in outdoor spaces, provides supportive services, and identifies strategies for permanent housing. As such, an MOU with Capsolano JPA was approved, providing a funding mechanism to hire 6.5 full-time employees, which allows capacity to further the strategic plan and goal. HR recently revamped the city's performance management system from a traditional annual appraisal of employee performance to a continuous performance management process. This new process involves planning, which is setting goals and expectations, regular check-ins through open communication and coaching, and review for transparency and feedback. To promote a highly engaged workforce, selected staff participated in a leadership program which was completed in September 2024. HR will be working to implement 2 projects from the program, which is new employee onboarding and breaking down department silos. Workplace culture sessions were also provided to all supervisors, counting over 120 attendees, as well as the annual new supervisor training and new sergeant training, which were also well attended. In June 2024, 6 pickleball court conversions were completed. In addition were Meadowlands and Pheasant Country Parks, the Mariposa Play Structure, and Off-Leash Dog Park. 2 shade structures were installed in Centennial and in Arlington Parks. And further, an HCF grant was awarded to renovate the pond at the historic Peña Adobe area. Several projects under construction include the Lagoon Valley Dog Park, Archery, Corderos, and Nashimesta Parks. Now, to promote climate, sustainability, and green energy, the NG Citywide Sustainable Energy Project launched in June 2024 to save the city $24 million in electrical utility costs over the next 25 years. Project designs and plans for the PV systems and energy emergency generators are undergoing final review and submittal for permit approval. Construction is anticipated to begin early this year. Staff is also coordinating the installation of over 320 trees across multiple sites. This includes a significant tree beautification effort in the heart of downtown. PD was awarded a grant in excess of $4 million to construct and staff the Real-Time Information Center. Construction started last December with an expected completion date of May this year. PD also partnered with nonprofits and other government agencies to provide mental health, housing, and substance abuse services to the unhoused as part of the goal to develop and implement a public safety strategic plan. Since its inception in fiscal year 22-23, the Firefighter Apprentice Program has been successful, with the second round of recruitments that began in early 2024. A total of 4 apprentices, 2 from each round, were promoted and have recently been admitted to Firefighter Academy. Graduation is slated for the 28th of this month. The fire department developed its fireworks prevention program funded by Measure M, which includes an expansion to the city's annual sign education campaign, like hosting firework take-back opportunities, door hangers, and etc. Continuing the city's employee retention recruitment efforts, HR held trainings on career development for all staff and hiring managers, while educating current staff on promotional recruitment processes. Staff continues to attend local regional job fairs, ongoing advertising, and feedback is currently being reviewed for strengths, areas to improve, and training needs. The implementation of the records retention system is underway. A contract was signed with Records Control Services to conduct an assessment on department on-site and off-site records, establishing a retention schedule. Staff is currently working on a policy for records management. Trepepi Smith was selected to assist with the development of an engagement strategy and plan. An initial report will be produced and resident feedback will be collected in spring this year to gain additional insight. The full community engagement strategy and communications plan is anticipated to be completed this summer. The Vacaville Neighborhood Association program launched in August 2023. A total of 9 neighborhoods have registered thus far, and an equipment loan program will be put in place around spring this year, providing neighborhoods access to essential tools and equipment, enabling residents to take an active role in maintaining and beautifying their neighborhoods.
So as you can see, and as you've heard, there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes in the city. And working on those 5 strategic plan goals really does help us build a vibrant city and a really vibrant community. There is no action required on this item, but we're happy to take any questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you. And I realize that with the staff report and all the updates, there is a spreadsheet with metric deliverables that go with that. So
There is.
for the public, if you're interested,
Comprehensive.
there's plenty of reading material that goes with it. This is just an update. I don't see any lights. I'm going to open up to the public comment. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to the council. This has been 5 years. Clearly, the timing of this does kind of end in this fiscal season, and appreciate staff's work behind the scenes, because with every one of those tasks and agenda items, there's usually a spreadsheet and a column with all the to-dos. I've seen several of the department heads over time. It's like a lot of work goes behind the scenes. Thank you for taking a strategic plan and creating objectivity so that you can actually follow it and see if it's successful. And I'm certain in the new year, once we go past our budget cycle, we'll start another process, and it's good for a city to freshen it up. This particular one started, during the pandemic, and all the things that shaped it So it's nice to see a lot of these things come to completion. And it's a lot of hard work for our staff. So thank you. Councilman or Vice Mayor Chapman.
Thank you. I did tell everything that the mayor just stated. Oftentimes you don't, you do a SWOT analysis and you get down to the last year. And oftentimes, as proven by our state of California with the funds they allocated for the unsheltered, for the homeless, the funds went out, but there was no accountability for the funds. And so it's always good to receive an update. And so with us having our council retreat coming up next month, I believe, next March.
Yeah, for the priority session discussion. The priority session discussion.
Yes, right. I know for myself, coming on after a plan has been put in place. There are things, there are priorities that I have in my mind, but yet the plans have already been made for the incoming year or two. So I'm looking forward to the priority session. It gives each of us an opportunity to speak on things that have been on our heart, our minds, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to know that that priority session will also help frame this year's budget, right? It's looking at that. And then in the new year will likely be an opportunity to restart a process for a new strategic plan. But it's nice to have a plan because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people who come and go. And as the council also does as well. There's names on the back of that strategic plan. And I think there's only one name that still exists on that plan. So, but it's been a lot of work over the years. And so with that, I think all we need to do is we've received it. And thank you for the work. And thank you for being able to track it. So appreciate it. We'll move on to the next item. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the City Council, this next item is a resolution approving a meriting attorney who I believe has a comment for you. Jessica Bowes, our Human Resources Director.
So given my obvious personal interest in this matter, I'll recuse myself from any legal advice should any be necessary.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Tonight, I bring this forward. A little bit of background is the City Council did recently complete an evaluation of the city attorney, and that evaluation showed that the performance of the city attorney has been satisfactory over the period that was evaluated. The council has indicated the desire to consider awarding Ms. Stewart, our city attorney, a merit increase of 2.62%. That increase would be retroactive to the end date of the evaluation period, which would be August of 2024, like it has been in the past. The increase would be within our published, publicly available salary schedule, so we're not increasing the range of this position. It would be within the current range. In summary, and to comply with a couple of government code sections, specifically 54956 and 54953, we need to do this in an open session at a regularly scheduled meeting, not a special meeting. So that's why we're here tonight. And that the executive salary change needs to be reported orally. So to let you know, the new salary would be $310,620.59 per year. There's no fiscal impact as these increases are built into the department budgets. And the recommendation is by simple motion to adopt the subject resolution.
Yeah, thank you for that. And this is required to be in a public setting, which is why we're having this conversation now. I'm gonna go ahead and open up to the public for any comment. Seeing none, I'm gonna bring it back to the council. To our city attorney, appreciate all the service. And it does seem like, well, that was last year when it could have been done. Time gets away from us, right? But so this is just making up for the time when it could have been done. And so I want to commend you and your team for your work and your leadership. With that, Councilmember Stockton.
Approve.
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Well, thank you for a good year and look forward to continued service. All right, we'll move right along.
Mayor, the next item before you is a resolution approving a one-time budget augmentation as well as a professional services agreement with Bob Hall and Associates for an executive recruitment. Andy Hess is here, our employee relations manager, along with Jessica, to give you a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm Sandy Hess, the Employee Relations Manager, here with Jessica, our Human Resources Director. Tonight, we're here to ask you to approve a resolution authorizing Human Resources Director to enter into a professional services agreement with Bob Hall and Associates for executive recruitment services for our impending city manager vacancy. Some background, the city of Vacaville is a general law city with a council manager form of government, and the city council appoints two positions, and that's the city manager and the city attorney. As you know, the city manager has announced his intention to retire on May 23rd of this year, and the council has directed Human Resources to initiate the process of finding a consultant to do the city manager recruitment. Several firms were considered, and we've determined that Bob Hall and Associates to be the best fit for this recruitment process. Bob Hall and Associates is an experienced recruiting firm that specializes in public sector executive recruitment. The executive recruiter that will be assigned to this recruitment is Joe Gordon, and he has over 35 years of local government experience. He recently facilitated the successful city manager recruitments for the city of Sassoon and the city of Vallejo, and he is a local resident of Vacaville. Executive recruitment services for this recruitment will include the development of a position profile that we'll use in the advertisement and job profile or job flyer for this position, and that'll be developed through discussion with the council. Advertisement, outreach, and initial screening of candidates, presentation of the recommendations of the candidates to move forward to the council, coordination and facilitation of the interview process, and the reference background check and job offer negotiation of a final selection. We are requesting a $30,000 budget augmentation for the general fund for the services, the fees for this contract. In terms of strategic plan goals, this meets goal number 4, maintaining effective and efficient services. And our recommendation is for you to adopt the resolution, and we are available for any questions. Also, the consultant, Mr. Gordon, is here tonight if you have any questions for him.
Would the consultant wish to speak? Well, introduce yourself.
I told myself I'd never come to a council meeting again when I retired as a city manager, and here I am. So, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be before you tonight. My name is Joe Gordon, and as staff said, I am a local resident. I've been a resident of Vacaville for close to 30 years. It's near and dear to my heart to be able to do this service for council, and so I look forward to making that process go smoothly and efficiently and finding a excellent city manager for the council. I'm a former city manager, and I'm also a former police chief from the city of San Ramon. I spent most of my time in the Bay Area, and as staff mentioned, upon my exit from public service, I went into executive recruiting, where I started work with Bob Hall and Associates, and have been doing the recruitments for them as well as other recruiters for a couple of years now. So I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have of me, of the process. The primary focus will be to get input from each of the council members and you, Mr. Mayor, as to what you're looking for in the next city manager, and hopefully we can make that process happen very quickly. And being local, I'm happy to meet with you, have Zoom meetings or whatever it takes to get your feedback prior to getting this recruitment launched.
Yeah, thank you. The only question that I'll ask staff, any questions for you? I just want, okay, so hold on one second. One question, just for clarification for the public is this is an externally run recruitment, but it is an external recruitment.
Yes, of course.
I just want to make that clear that this is open to our current staff.
Internal folks are encouraged to apply, definitely.
Okay, Councilmember Silva.
Yeah, so I, so like in the interest of like transparency, I don't know how many people are going to apply and what those efforts are, but you know, if we're all considering or looking for something kind of different but kind of similar, how do we ensure that how much of your own like bias or personal experience influences who you present to us? Like as a city manager, as a former city manager, as a former chief, police, how do we ensure that like whoever you bring forward to us as a council or what we're looking for, I guess?
That's a great question. So my team, you don't just get me. I do have a team, and there's a city manager, 2 city managers in there as well that help with this recruitment process. So we use the position profile and the ideal candidate that the council develops. You tell us what you're looking for. So we aren't getting into weeds, so to speak, so deep as to whether or not I would select somebody as the city manager. I look for if they meet the position profile, if they meet the ideal candidate, and then we recommend those folks to come forward for a specific interview with the council. And the council will really be the ones asking the direct questions to determine who to select. So if there's a lot, for instance, in Vallejo, there were quite a few candidates. They're screened against the position profile. And then if there's, for instance, I'll give you an example. If there were 20, I don't quite remember in Vallejo how many there were, but if there were 20, let's say, we would cut the list down to the most aligned with the position profile and the ideal candidate. And then maybe they have a first initial round to the council to actually reduce that candidate pool to interview. By going over the resume, we conduct screening interviews with the candidates, and then the council can make a determination. All depends on how many applicants you get. But the whole idea is to get the council highly qualified candidates and applicants, and then leave it to the council to decide.
And then, and I'm sorry, has that process been laid out, or is that something we still decide as a council?
The council can do it any way they would like. Best practices and what's generally seen out there is you have 2 or 3 panels that help inform the council, such as a staff leadership panel, because you want the staff. Clearly, it's very important to have a cohesive leadership team. So generally, we like to put together a staff leadership panel that is part of the oral board. And then we also recommend that you do a community panel. The city has many community partners and advocates that they can put together as part of that. And then during the interview process, the candidates would go through a series of interviews to include the final, and the decision clearly rests with the council. They would then, these other panels would then kind of inform the council to give them just added information to make their hiring decision. And as you know, and as stated here, ultimately, it's the council's decision on who they would like.
And then so part of that decision can still be like how many internal candidates we would want to consider or for the opportunity, or is that something that normally you guys would screen beforehand?
Again, it goes against the position profile, and internal candidates have just as much of an opportunity as external candidates. And so if that is something that needs to be further defined, then
process for that.
We certainly can do that. Generally, we have internal candidates quite often in most of these recruitments, and some of them given the strength of the recruitment of the other external candidates, some of them don't meet that level to move forward. Many others do. And so I can't, in a hypothetical situation, I honestly can't really define that specifically for you. But if that was a statement that all internal candidates should go to an oral, that's something the council could direct me to do. I would counter, though, in a situation like that, we like to set it up oral boards for one day, right? Because a lot of these people that are, including the council, you're dedicating a whole day to interviews. So that's usually 6 candidates is generally a day long, because it's usually an hour interview, things like that, and then breaks and then discussion and all that. So if 3 internal candidates were mandated to get it, or 4, then you're leaving 2 spaces for externals. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have multiple days, but that becomes highly problematic in a lot of ways and very, very time consuming. And I know there is an interest in the council to get through the process, at least prior to, as close to possible when the current city manager retired.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Chapman.
Thank Council Member Silver. With his questions, had pretty much my question answered. So, and that was what would be the extent of the council members' interaction in your process? And so you were very thorough with that. Could you go back 3 slides for me? One more. Okay. How much is the city manager involved, in the outgoing city manager involved in your process?
To the extent the council wants. The council makes the hire. I recommend that the city manager be involved as much as possible, because they know their city. They've had intricately involved with their city processes, all these different things. So I do recommend it, that they be involved as much as possible. But really the bottom line is this council hires the next city manager. If you want no involvement whatsoever, then the council can direct that. If you want partial involvement or complete involvement, it's completely up to the council.
And my last question, where were you in which city?
The city of San Ramon, which is in the Bay Area.
Yeah, okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I told HR staff that we stole a bunch of stuff from Vacaville. So Vacaville's done some pretty good work, and we've stole that from them to implement in San Ramon back in the day. So
that's why you're happy living here.
That's why I'm happy. That's why I knew it. This is good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Thank you so much for the selection of Bob All Associates, but also Joe. I think it's awesome, the opportunity for, when I started taking notes at San Ramon, maybe all said, the parallel San Ramon and Vacaville. You have San Ramon, you have Bishop Branch, you have a community that was like Vacaville 20-some years ago. I know Bishop Branch very well, as where Chevron's headquarters was until California kicked them out, and now they're in Texas. My wife worked there for a long time. The parallels San Ramon and Vacaville are very interesting. The fact that we're hopefully on the precipice of biotech and the change, the fact that you know San Ramon as a public safety city manager, reside in Vacaville, having that kind of duality, not being stuck in a one fishbowl rut, seeing what San Ramon was. San Ramon and Walnut Creek were 40,000 person cities until. And so the fact that you know San Ramon prior to Bishop Branch and explosion of Chevron is very key to help have a lens that you can find a city manager, either internal or external, that knows, hey, someone can't be satisfied, or a NIMBY, no growth, or as is, and on idle, that they need to come here to guide the city to the precipice of the next level. I realize what they have and what it could be. So, I mean, I think you searching for somebody internal or external, with being especially from a city, you reside here, but you know what a city was prior to it becoming. And I think it's really important, because I don't want us to idle. or revert back. I want to make sure we kind of keep going forward in the same process. So I think you having that experience, living in Vacaville, but seeing the optics of another city is really key. So I appreciate that kind of insight you're gonna have.
Thank you. I would agree with everything you stated, and I think we all know one size does not fit all. And having this experience will help. Most candidates will call me because if they're any good, they're going to do their due diligence on Vacaville. And so, one, being a resident, and two, having the experience that I come from in San Ramon, though there are some differences, there's many parallels, will help inform candidates whether they want to come after and actually pursue the position as well. So thank you for those comments.
Yeah, that's a point well taken. A lot of it does require fit on both sides. So, Councilmember Weiler?
Thank you. I have a question, and that question is, so you said you will interview us, council members, and then get information also from other people as well, and then come up with a profile of the position. So I would like to know, once you've come up with that profile, will we be able to see it once again before it goes out? Will we have more than one chance to look at it?
So that's a great question, and that's generally one of the most important initial processes is creating the profile. I can tell you the position profile piece is not very different across the board with city managers, right? There's just some high level things that it's really the ideal candidate. And that's where it really matters to get information from the council. What do you think an ideal candidate is? So with that being said, I'm happy to do it any way the council wants. I always caution the council, however, though, if we're trying to adhere to a timeline for the current city manager's exodus and a new city manager in, that can take up a period of time. So we certainly can do that. Generally, we'll put like a brochure together, and we can figure out a way, an opportunity to allow council to take a look to make sure that we've captured, and I'll be working hand in hand with the HR team. And so that they've captured the essence of what the council's looking for before we launch. And how we do that, there's probably several ways to touch on that. And if that's the desire of the council, then that's what we'll do.
That's one of my desires, so we'll see if that's the desire of the council. Just because I like to see, did you hear what we said?
I understand.
We're 7 different people, so, who has the voice that comes through?
I
So
understand.
I just want, that's my philosophy. And then the second question is, in looking at your paperwork, you have hired a lot of city managers. So do you see a lot of the same people rolling around, or what's the field look like for city managers?
So I'll tell you what I told HR, and I believe it's true. Vacaville has a great reputation, and I believe you're going to get some strong candidates. Just my 30,000 foot, haven't touched, haven't looked. Nobody's called me and said, "Hey, Joe, tell me about this place." But just knowing, even from, like I said, I stole stuff and it's not stealing public. Just so you know, I'm not stealing stuff. It's legal to take their stuff and use it, just so you know. But I do believe you'll have a strong pool of candidates. I believe that will happen. Now, I do see in other cities that aren't, I'll say, as strong as Vacaville, you get a lot of retreads. And a lot of times they're just, it's kind of the spaghetti approach. They're throwing stuff at the wall and seeing anything that sticks, they're heading that way. I'm not a proponent of that strategy for the city of Vacaville, and I don't think that those types would make the cut anyway, because I believe you'll have a good candidate pool. Does that kind of answer your question, or did I go around the barn too long there?
No, and thank you. And I think it's a real strength that you are from Vacaville, so I appreciate that. And I think we have really qualified candidates internally, but we'll look at the whole spectrum and see where we land. Thank you.
I appreciate it. You weren't thinking you were going to get up and speak, but I think it personalizes the approach. It is the one thing that the council has to weigh in, one of the most important decisions. So I thank you for being here. And it'll just require a vote, but appreciate your time.
Great, thank you.
And I wanted to say thank you to our city manager, because it's an interesting place to be sitting here and looking at your replacement. It's a very odd feeling, right? We're in a good place as a city, and it should speak volumes that we have someone who has done the work, has been in positions and seen this. Some of us have experienced the process ourselves, so I can see why there's a lot of questions. They're all good questions. So with that, do I have a motion? First of all, let me clarify. I did open this up to the public, did I not? Okay. I'm going to open up to the public. I caught myself. All right. All right. So formalities is complete. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Well, thank you very much. And look forward to working with you, sir. All right. We'll move right along.
I have to introduce the next item. Okay, sorry. The last item before you tonight is a follow-up to the review and discussion about our commission application process. I would just like to commend our staff for being able to jump on this real quick so that we can give the council an opportunity to take a look at that particular piece of it. And so with that, I will turn it over to our city clerk, Michelle Thornbrew, who's been doing a lot of important work on this, to give you a quick update on this particular piece, with the second piece to come at your next meeting.
So tonight you've been provided the application process for the commission recruitment so that we can get started on the recruitment in time to fulfill the commission openings that will be coming up on March 31st. And before I hand it over to you, I just wanted to inform you that after review of the application questionnaire, staff does intend to make some changes just on the to make it very clear to any applicants what items will be private and what items will be public and the reasons therefore. So we will be making a statement on there so it's abundantly clear to anybody applying that their document becomes public record with some redactions made for their privacy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Is there anything that you'll be able to share that's specific that you're going to make changes, or I mean, we don't have a slide to show anything, but can you be more specific as to where you see that that's going to be on the application?
Yeah, so if you look at your attachment number 1, where it talks about our job and gives some guidance towards the end about filling that out and noting that they can skip some fields on the application. We'll be more clear about what fields that they are able to skip.
Just for privacy.
And that, yes, because we don't need their driver's license. There's things like that that's included because the software is intended to be an employment application software. And we can't remove those, but we can ask that they either don't fill them out, or if they do fill them out, we redact them. So we'll be more clear about that on the process, and we'll be more clear that this becomes public record.
Okay. While one area that we're not here to discuss tonight is probably 20 years old where a stipend was $40 a meeting, but that's for a whole nother discussion. For now, it is what it is. As far as the questionnaire application, I think the only question that I don't, based upon the conversations that we had at our prior meeting, what for me was confidentiality and then the question on each of the commission applications, which is please indicate which district you are applying to represent. That's the one question I say based upon our discussion is we just remove that. It's irrelevant. They're not representing the district, they're representing the city. And those are my comments. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public for any comment. Seeing none, I will close that and bring it back to the council. Councilmember Silva?
I would suggest, and I don't want to get into it, but we can if you want, but rather than omitting question number 10, please indicate which district you're applying to represent. Please indicate what city council district you currently reside in.
Well, I appreciate the discussion. Again, my position is that I've already stated my position, so I believe those questions are irrelevant to what we're asking. Their addresses are listed, those who will be part of the interview process that we'll discuss later. But that reinforces that they are to represent a district. So it continues to confuse and cloud the position of a commissioner once they're appointed. Councilmember Wiley?
I think you just answered my question because I wanted to know why, because I thought last time you were thinking you could only choose the people that said mayor's appointment. And so that's why I thought you didn't want it on, but you don't want it on because you don't want them to think they're representing a specific thing. So I just didn't, that's why I didn't understand, because I thought, my thing is you can pick from anyone.
Right.
So that's why,
Right.
you can pick from anyone.
Right, so the process, as we will discuss in 2 weeks, this then gets reinforced. If people believe that they're applying, whether it is to apply to represent a district or because you're in a district, my view is myself currently or any future mayor will follow an appointment process that's ratified. And so their address, the only thing is they need to be a Vacaville resident. Their ability to be interviewed by members of the council and me will help shape and determine how we look at candidates. But for the purposes of an application, it becomes irrelevant to know which district they live in, only that are you a Vacaville resident? And that's the only recommendation. Are you a Vacaville resident? That way it's clear. If somebody can't get past that question, then we have to verify it. But at least it's in the affirmative, because there's been times in the past where maybe somebody's not a resident, or either they move, or they think they're part of living in the city, but they got a P.O. box and it doesn't apply. I think that's appropriate to ask. So if we're replacing it, my recommendation is are you a Vacaville resident? It seems moot, but that way it clarifies. Yeah, Councilmember Silva.
So I think, so taking in that input, I think so the question is, how do we ensure that that we all not just represent any one interest or in any one respective district or council members, whatever that, whatever that effect is implied by this. So if my suggestion would be to please indicate which city council district you currently reside in, please note that as a commissioner, you do not represent or only look at things from your district perspective, but you're making decisions based on city council policy. Just something to clarify or help educate those who are applying, that they're not only looking out for their own area. That was the concern initially, that over time, some of us are not trying to go back to this, quote unquote, good old boy club, or, status quo, whatever it might be. I know some in our town want to see that, but the whole objective and why we had part of the reason why we had a lot of community support to go to districts was to ensure that there was more representation throughout the community to make sure we can strengthen all of Vacaville. So I completely agree that commissioners should be looking out for the best interests of the whole city based on what council decides, just as much as we should. To me, that's why I feel that that's information that I would just like to be aware, cognizant of, not even just for me, but for the public. So that way they, when they have questions, if it's something they want to inquire about, we can say, no, it's not only 3 or 4 people that live in one particular neighborhood that's swaying votes or influencing votes or decisions one way or the other. There is a true concerted effort to ensure that there's more representation throughout our growing town. So
I appreciate your comments. My response is based on what you just said and the practice we've had for the last 3 years, this feeling that needs to somehow still be captured reinforces this whole notion that representation is based upon where you live. And I agree with you, representation on this council is based upon where you live. And I absolutely agree with that. So what will be discussed in 2 weeks is that representation allows for in odd and even years to be part of the interview process, to ensure that the candidates that apply are not just interviewed by a mayor and a vice mayor who might rotate. It's by people who are affected And so I just believe that the thought of leaving them on there does exactly the opposite of what you're suggesting, is it reinforces that where you live becomes a representation of what you're trying to capture. I would suggest that this council is the determining factor, not the commission. And the experience that we've seen in the last 3 years is whether you asked an applicant where they live, what district are you applying to represent, or what district do you live in, becomes a barometer for the future to say, look, you're overrepresented. That's not the point. When you are on the commission, you're not there because you're representing anything other than this council. So that's the reason why I don't believe it does anything but further confuse an application in the process. And this is the reason why I'm recommending that we remove those 2 questions, or at least if we leave them, it's simply the direct question, are you a Vacaville resident? Because that is really the benchmark for what the roles of the
Sorry,
yes.
clarify, what was
Yes.
the other question?
Well, it's different numbers on the different commissions. So it's the question that specifically is about which district you are applying to represent. The rewording simply should be a question, are you a Vacaville resident? Yes or no? And that way it's not somebody who lives in another city and works in Vacaville or has a PO box. For clarity, it's part of the application process. We should get that when they apply, right? They're going to have their address.
Yeah, so
But-
we will get their address and we double check to make sure, even when they put that they're in a certain district, we double check to make sure
So
that
it's either eliminated or reworded so that it becomes very clear to the applicant. They are stating who they are, where they live, in the geographical boundary of the city. Well, that's my recommendation. Does it require a motion or just accept the feedback? Probably does require a motion, even though it doesn't say it. Councilmember Weiland?
I just have one other question about the application. I noticed there's 10 days from August 6th to August 16th. I know this is last year's, but is that about what we usually have, 10 days?
no, per the policy right now, we try to allow for 30 days for noticing.
I thought that was pretty short.
Yeah, so this was the special opening in District 2.
Okay.
And we already had taken quite a bit of time getting that filled. So we shortened the application period and we still got 20 applications.
And I had intended to look at this before this meeting and I didn't get to. In the directions of the whole thing, the way it's set up, doesn't it say that if you've applied, then your application stays on file for a while or not?
Yes, so per the policy, if there is a vacancy that occurs within the first 6 months, we can go back to the pool. We can also open it up if the council so desires, but we allow them to be reconsidered within the first 6 months. And then if it's after 6 months of the term, then we go ahead and we open it up for reapplication.
All right. Thank you for those clarifications.
Vice Mayor Chapman?
Yes. I agree with Council Member Silva in regards to leaving the question on the questionnaire with the statement that you stated as far as residing in any one of the 6 districts. You are letting them know you're still representing the entire city. You're not speaking specifically for your district. I think clarity needs to be put there for that purpose, but I prefer, my preference is to leave the question on here. It doesn't have to read, please indicate which district you're applying to represent. Please indicate which district you presently reside. And then the annotation that you are being, receiving an appointment to represent the city of Vacaville and not specifically your district.
I hear what you're saying. I disagree with it, but I appreciate it.
I thought this was
Well, the reason is because, again, I've said it, The state law basically creates an appointment process. And anytime you inject something that creates this sense that it is being viewed differently, clouds what the true purpose of what a commission is and how it is selected, that's all. So when you interject something like that, it messages to the public and to the current and future council that where they reside has some reference of importance to how they're selected. And it just becomes a distraction to what is really how we got here in the first place. And that is when clarification was that it is not by district. And so the more we want to continue to attach district to commissions, it just further promotes it. That's all. Councilmember Stockton?
Yes, I think that we need to just pick the best people. It doesn't matter where they live. If we want to know what district they live in, there's a website that we can enter the stuff onto. I mean, most of us grew up here or have lived here for a significant amount of time to know the different parts of town. I think it's more important that we have, a variety or diversity of interest in backgrounds and things like that to truly get good opinions moving forward. I think it's silly to put the district on there. I think we just need to get good people wherever they live in Vacaville. I'm ready to make a motion whenever the comments are done.
All right, Councilmember Ritchie.
So I'm just trying to just listen back and forth and everything. It just, to me, it doesn't make a difference because either way, I'm in an industry where I can find out where everybody lives here. And pull property profile and find out where you live, and so if I have your first name, last name, you live in Solano County, I know where you live. So I'll find out where you live, if you're my district or not my district. It's just, that doesn't matter. I mean, if you take it away, I'll still find out. I think we all can too. So, but the only part is, we take it away, like, it's kind of weird because we're districts, but we're kind of moving to at-large for commission, for Parks and Recs. So to me, I'm always going to pick the best candidate. I can't be a hypocrite. I think there's like 18 candidates in my last district, and I picked someone from District 1. I felt they were the best candidate, and I really wish I would have communicated with other was it 2, 4, and 6 and at-large, hey, look at my second choice. They were really good, but that would have overweighted the commission with the 2 people, which is already heavily weighted in the first place. So I didn't give that opinion. So it is frustrating because you want to see the best candidates, but you also don't want to skew a district, what could have been my district, to have over 50% of the representation. So it's hard for me to figure out how to go about this, but I just want to state, like, I don't want to slip into an at-large and we're the only district people, because that's almost what it sounds like. But I don't know how to resolve it, because either way, we're gonna get a list of everybody and say 1, 3, and 5 go and at-large mayor, 2, 4, 6 go and at-large mayor. I'm always gonna look and see, oh, you're my district. I want to make sure that there's representation from a council, planning commission, and commissioner, if possible. But if they're not the best choice, I'm moving on to the best choice. So I'm just at a place where it doesn't really matter to me, because I'm going to pick the best person, but I would like to see a preference of people to want to represent the whole city. So there's no real directives, it's more my opinion.
Okay. Councilmember Wiley?
Well, I think if you look at our planning commission now and our Parks and Rec commission now, we have people that are serving outside their district in both cases, I believe. So I don't think that anyone on the council says, oh, if it's not my district, then I'm not going for anybody else. I'll dig somebody up if I have to. I think all of us want the best person on the Parks and Planning Commission both. So just because they're District 6 doesn't mean that I have to have them. But I also believe that since we are districts and we talk with people about that, it would be good to have continuity between the commissions and the council to say we're doing it by districts for the sole reason to have input from across the city. Because sometimes if you say, well, it's just going to be at large, some people might think, well, I know I'm not going to have a chance, so I won't do it. I think we've probably gotten more applications doing it through the districts, and we've had more applications for the openings that we've had probably since we've been districts. That's just my guess, than we would if we just said, okay, here's a Parks Commission and our Planning Commission who wants to throw their hat in.
I appreciate your comments. And before I go to Councilmember Stockton, I just want to respond based on what I'm hearing. And I appreciate any of the conversations say we all want to pick the best persons. But when we start talking about, okay, we're going to select people who are applying based upon a district, we're starting to put blinders on, right? And remember, for clarity, the commission is an at-large position. So when I hear things like, well, I don't want to go back to at-large, the reality is the commission appointment is a mayor's appointment. So this is the reason why we're here. This is the application process. We haven't even got to the policy, but the same discussion is going to come back in 2 weeks because, Councilmember Ritchie, you're not picking the appointment. The goal that we'll discuss as far as what the process would be that can continue to be more open, whether it's the mayor and the vice mayor or mayor and members of the council, is there is the input so that when whomever is the mayor begins the process of making appointments to boards, commission, it is insightful, it's informed, and it's inclusive of a variety and diversity of thought and ideas that comes from this council. That's really the key. The law hasn't changed. It's been in effect since 1971. And so everything that we inject into this as if it's a district, it furthers with what was just shared. That I would pick my person but I will pick somebody else if not in my district. We're 3 years into a culture that's what this council has been doing. And so what I'm saying is our application process should no longer be somehow connected or promoting a district. That's all. And anytime you put that in there, it furthers what that is because it is the commission's, no matter what has been done in the last 3 years, the commission by law is an appointment that can be anywhere in the city. Plain and simple. So it's an application. That's what's on the table right now. Councilmember Silva?
Yeah, I'm still really confused as to why this is even, I mean, I hear the argument why it's an issue, but I'm curious to really understand tangibly, what was the issue to bring this up over the 4 years? So, I mean, you're welcome to respond, but what I'm gonna ask council, I don't wanna spend my time looking up different districts. It sounds like we're all gonna do that individually. So to me, I would request council just to reword that particular question. What district do you currently reside in? So that way, it's just something that I can be aware of. That's what I'm asking.
Well, and my response to that, and then Councilmember Stockton is two things. One is good governance, and the other is bias. The moment you put a question on a questionnaire, you inject bias, one way or the other. Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, I think I would put more effort into this discussion if 30 to 50% of us didn't actually have people outside of our, like we have 30 to 50% of us are picking people outside of our district. So we just need to pick the best people. Like, listen, I think we all want to get good advice moving forward. I can't tell you how many times we've had things come from Planning Commission or Parks and Rec and the council completely goes a different direction. I have concerns with what we are doing now. I think that this is an opportunity for us to all have input on picking the best person and not politicize these positions or to just do it simply based upon where somebody lives, because that's not even what we're doing. We're not even doing that. We're picking the best people anyway. So this is just codifying that. It's following the law that's been set forth. So my motion is that we approve this with the recommendation to remove which district that they live in.
I second it.
All right, well, this is going to be contentious anyway, so I'll do a roll call.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie?
No.
Councilmember Silva?
No.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
No.
Vice Chair Chapman?
No.
Mayor Chair Cartley?
Yes. So it does not pass. So there's a need for clarification. Is there a clarification or another motion?
Make a motion. Yes, except the way you presented it with that question in there.
So discussion. So your motion is to leave it as is?
Yes.
So we're going to say that it can't go as is. Well, it can, if you want to vote for it. The point is which district are you going to represent?
Well, I just mean listing that, what the thing is, because the date's wrong and all those other things. I just meant this application form with that question, which district do you wish to represent? And it doesn't have to say, which district are you applying, which opening are you applying for? Which district opening are you applying for?
There is no
So that way you're
opening.
not saying that you're representing it. So with the saying, which district opening are you applying for?
So I'm going to direct a question to our city attorney. In the interest of what the state law is, does a question like that create a sense of a connection to a district that then somehow applies to an application process that does not provide clarity to a mayor? In other words, to make it very simple, you got a question that says which district you can represent, and that was the very issue that we talked about, that the law says you're not there to represent a district. A council member can't do that. The mayor makes the appointment. So when you have questions of confusion like that, what would the recommendation be?
So at its foundation, the law just addresses how that the mayor can appoint anyone subject to the council's recommendation or approval. The council can establish a policy about how you get there. It does not negate the fact that the mayor ultimately has the authority to appoint anyone. So I think it's a policy question for the council about how that's going to be perceived, how you write that question. One thing I did hear was instead of saying what district are you applying to represent, you could just say what council district do you currently reside in?
Okay, so Councilmember Wiley, you started a motion. Do you want to, based upon what our city attorney said, do you want to change that motion?
Yes, it's the same question based. Whether I ask which one is, which open position are you applying for, or saying which one do you reside in, we'll know which one they reside in because they put their address on there. Sometimes they don't know which one they reside in, actually, people mark the wrong thing. So I guess I will just say, if the attorney says write it that way, I'll write it that way. I'll go with this application worded to say, which one do you live in? Is that what you said?
I was simply, repeating what I had heard the council come up with the council.
So for clarification, the question would only be what district do you reside in?
Or what your area of residence? Where's which district is your area of residence in? You live in?
Is there a second?
I have a question. What if they get it wrong? Are they disqualified?
No.
So we're asking people to have to look up where they live. So we're literally think about what we're asking in an application for what we're trying, our outcome. So I appreciate that there's a motion.
So in that
Who's the
case,
clown?
then they're not going to be
No,
representing too much because they don't know where to live.
Hold on. First and foremost, we're not going to call another member of this council a clown.
Seriously, name calling? That's mature.
It's
I didn't say any name.
No,
excuse me. Excuse me.
It wasn't you.
They're talking about me. They're
Stop
talking
it.
about me. I'm
Stop
just
it.
answering.
Listen, we're not going to call members of this council a clown, okay? We can have a discussion, you can have personal discussions, but not as a point of order in the public. We're not going to do that, okay? We can have disagreements on why we're doing this. We can disagree about it. And we all have a vote. And we can all go out to the public later on and express why or why not this is a good idea. I made it very clear. I don't think it's good policy. It's bad practice. I can be overruled, but we're working on a motion in a second, and we can vote on that. And that's fine. And so the motion as it stands is the update for privacy to provide a question that says, what district do you live in? That was the motion. Have you changed it again, Councilmember? Okay, so that's the motion. So the motion is please provide the district you live in. Now there can be commentary and discussion. It's like, it's true. They may or may not know, and if they get it wrong, that's probably shouldn't be disqualifying because we're asking them to have to go look up what district they live in so that you or anyone on the council will know what that is because it adds bias. But we have a motion, and is there a second?
I second, however,
Okay, so we have a motion, a second, and a discussion.
yes, discussion. Thank you. Councilmember Wiley had initially stated using the term district, and then after hearing our attorney speak about the wording, I thought I heard Councilmember Wiley state, yes, just that. And at that time, the comment was, where do you presently reside in Vacaville? And it leaves out the word, which district do you reside? So you're not asking them which district they're residing, but you're asking them where do they reside in Vacaville. That information can be used by the council members when they're reviewing the application, if need be. But we all look for the best candidate to receive the appointment. So I'm willing to. I did second the motion, but is that what you had heard from the attorney? I'm just seeking clarification from the maker of the motion.
Yes.
Or where do you
Where
reside
do you
in
reside?
Vacaville?
Right. That's fine.
Okay, and that's what I said.
Okay, so that's a question, where do you reside in Vacaville? That's already on the application. So it's already in the formal application. And so the question is the motion is what district do you live in Vacaville? That's the current motion. Do you second that?
If need be, yes, I'll go ahead and
Sure.
second the
Okay.
motion. Yes.
Roll call.
Councilmember Chapman?
Yes.
Right, Vice Mayor Chapman.
Hmm?
I apologize. I referred to you as council members to Vice Mayor. Councilmember Stockton?
Sure.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Yeah.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Fremont?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Mayor Carley?
No. So those changes will be applied and the applications can go out this week? Okay, great. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item. Reports of the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only item I have for an update is our warming center, our extreme warming center, weather center was once again open this past Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we had 44 occurrences, 27 different individuals during that 3-day period. So, and it continues to be utilized quite well. According to our staff members from crew, we are not having any challenges or issues with the surrounding properties. So it's working well. So thank you for your continued support. Thank you to those on staff that are making that happen and to those out in the community that are supporting that activity.
All right, thank you very much. Reports to City Council. Vice Mayor Chapman.
Yeah. I was listening to the city manager, but I don't know if you, I was listening, but I was trying to work this at the same time. You might have made mention of it. The one unsheltered homeless individual that was at the center and became ill. Did you make mention of that? Okay. I would like to just share that. Thank you for having the center opened and it was utilized. There was a situation where there was an individual that took advantage of the center and became ill and ended up having to call the paramedics. And there were members from the community that were there at the time that all of this went down. And I'm going to use the word in essence, a life was possibly saved because the center was being operable that evening. And then the other thing I wanted to inquire, during the summer, this past year, 2024, when the cooling center was opened, we actually utilized transportation to assist those who were not, weren't, hate to say residing, but were not located near the center. Will we be doing that for them, for the warming center? will we provide transportation to get them there? The same as we did for the cooling center.
My understanding that we have not been able to provide that service because of the hours, but that's something that we can explore. Hasn't been needed, but we can verify.
And so we would have to get the word out there and establish some type of hours. What time does our transportation close down?
I need to look at the resources and timing availability of.
Okay, but I gotta ask, if we did it during the cooling center, what's the difference during the heating, a warming center?
Hours.
Time of day.
Well, that's why I'm asking. The hours of the transportation, what time do they run? Is it different during the winter than it is the summer? Okay, you're looking to it. Thank you.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes. I just wanted to say, I recognize that we may not always agree on certain items, but there's one thing that I know 100% about each and every single one of you on here, including myself, is that we care about our community. We care about our city, and we might have different values and beliefs or pathways that we think are the best to get where we want to be. But I want to make it abundantly clear to each and every single one of you on this council that I respect you. Greg, we've grown up together. You bring tremendous acumen, lived experience. You know real estate. You know local businesses, and you advocate for them. And I appreciate that about you so much. Michael, you grew up here. You advocate for a community that has been forgotten for so long, and you do it with passion. And I respect that so much about you because you're giving a voice to a group of people that haven't had it for a long time. And I'm so glad that you're up here with me. Mayor Carly, you've dedicated over 30 years of service to this community. You raised your kids here. You were a police chief where you put your life on the line for our community. And you could have just rode off into the sunset, but instead you're being our mayor and you're trying to keep us together, pointed in the right direction and moving forward. And I just admire you so much for continuing to serve with us. Dr. Chapman, you have done a tremendous amount in the field of education. You've been involved in this community for a tremendous amount of time, and you being our vice mayor is a huge milestone for our community and for every person that's of color that grows up in our community to know that they have a voice on this council. And I'm so glad that you're here and you're doing a great job, and I'm honored to be here with you. Councilmember Freemount, your lived experience, what you've gone through in life, and the fact that you've been able to overcome some of that and become a successful businessman and bring that acumen here to the council when we need help in fiscal situations is so timely and so appreciated. I'm so glad that you're here and you're doing a great job. Jeanette, you walked your district 3 times and you doing a tremendous job connecting with your constituents. And I admire that about you. You've dedicated a significant amount of time to our kids, to educating them, and you continue to serve now. Every single person on here cares about the community, and I just wanted to make it abundantly clear that I may disagree with you from time to time, but I love you all, I pray for you all, and I'm proud to be up here with all of you trying to do what we think is best. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Ritchie.
That was wonderful. That was really good.
You almost could save that for the retreat, but thank you for tonight.
And I'll say, like, in comedy, in other news, I'll get back to business. I reach out and talk to LA every single day, multiple times. And one thing that's always on my mind is you're seeing the news, they're only highlighting the wealthy, the rich, and the loss that they took in Palisades, the Palisades fire. There's 8 fires. Like, there is people that aren't wealthy and uber rich, besides Tom Hanks, that are getting destroyed. So I hear every time I call down there. The reason I say that, because the spirit of the law and policies, like, they are being recarved and retooled right now, right in front of us. And even though we're in Vacaville, we're 358 miles away from LA, what's happening there is going to affect us here, for the better or worse. And I'm my finger on the pulse every day. CEQA, in 1972, I think it was invented. It was to protect the environment. It's to protect environmental law. It's been perverted and used to restrict housing and development to the point it's destroyed projects, made the cost of housing so expensive. Builders to default, they give up. By the time they make it through the litany of a CEQA challenge, the product they bring in the community is so expensive you can't afford it. I mean, one person anonymously could write in and stop a whole project with CEQA. And they're starting to realize a lot of these things have had the wrong intent. So we're going to see a lot of law legislation in California that's going to affect Vacaville. It's going to affect our county and our state for progress. A lot of these projects are sitting here in mothballed. By the time they're done, they're too expensive to afford. CEQA, the Coastal Commission, is going to have effect here in LAFCO. So LAFCO right now is actually going through a little bit of a change. The 4 largest counties in California where all the money is: Ventura County, LA County, San Diego County, and the fourth one I forgot, San Bernardino. They're about to challenge it. And it's going to change everything. It's going to change all these little fake walls put up. We can't do this, can't do that. Watch them. So you're going to see a lot of development, a lot of change happen for the betterment of communities, still making sure they fit in the spirit of the development, urban boundaries. But it's going to be good for Vacaville. It's good for the whole state and the whole county, because you're going to see projects brought to the ground with less red tape, lower cost to get affordable housing. So it's going to affect us here, and it's going to be great. So I just want to talk about that. Things are happening down there will have an effect on us. So thank you.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you. So we recently celebrated Lunar New Year, and just most of us were able to attend, and it was really a beautiful event again, where it just represented a lot of the diversity that has long made this particular city home. This city, this grounds has a lot of history, a lot of trauma from the original natives all the way to current day. And without getting into national politics, things are extremely polarized. And I will tell everybody that I'm tired. I'm tired of political games. I'm tired of posturing. I do believe that everybody on this council absolutely truly cares about this community. And I think the challenge that we continue to face is, how do we make sure that we're cognizant of people that are different from us, people that believe differently, different faiths, different cultures, different ways to express that, right? Obviously, there's appropriate ways of dealing with that and other ways that are not appropriate to deal with that. There's a time and place. My godmother always told me, mijo, there's a time and place for everything. I don't always listen to that, to my own detriment. But I do know that it is very important when people are always trying to advocate for more, right? Always trying to, whatever more is. I've seen so many people feel like they've been done wrong, particularly by our government, or law enforcement, or just rich people or poor people. There's always this constant blame going around. And so for me, when I'm looking at policies, and when I have council members who have the floor and talking, and I hear different conversations going on, to me, it's important that we make sure that we have policies in place. Yes, that ensure that we have trainings that ensure that everybody looks at things and evaluates processes at large, but also that we have the different diverse representation that exists in this community. We have history of excluding different demographics throughout the history of this town. And I think, I feel obviously very strongly that a majority of people are ready to move forward with that. Earlier today, I found it interesting, to be fully transparent, that there was a push to increase the cost to a particular project, the Decolotas Park, that we know is already at a high amount, that there's limited funding to be able to add on to it, but yet we increased the cost $350,000 tonight to that. My concern is that, and the concern that's out there in the public, is that there's going to be efforts to basically increase the cost of this project to kill it. And to help ensure that that isn't something that's going to happen, city manager, based on that, on the decision, what is the current process of how we would go about adjusting that additional, I think they said 304, I forget what it was, $350-ish thousand. What I don't want to see happen is we made that commitment and now once again, we don't follow through because we had a proposal within budget and now something that we just, as a council, approved to go beyond budget.
If you can answer that.
Yeah,
Because
no,
it's really about an engineer's estimate, right?
Yeah, the process doesn't change. The cost will inevitably see increased cost as a result of the decision tonight, but I will be immediately working with our Public Works and Parks and Rec departments to see how that does impact the overall design and cost figures of the project, and at which point in time we will, if there is overruns, we will have to value engineer and explore what can and cannot be done. I mean, it's, I personally am not giving up on this and we're moving forward with it. And so if there is an issue, we will bring that back for discussion. But we have some very talented people working for us, and the ultimate goal is to figure a way to make sure that with that inclusion, we can still find a way to make it happen.
All right, thank you for clarifying.
Councilmember Wiley.
I just wanted to say also that it is sometimes difficult to sit up here and make decisions that you think are in the best of for the city, because you have to look at the whole city. And even if something is not in District 6, I really consider what's best. And I said I did watch, the Planning Commission talking about the masonry fence, and she brought up the question was, well, why is there one on the single family homes, but not for the mobile home park? So why is there then inequity there? And it was a question, a fair question too, but the whole reason was because it had the buffer zone and it was in phase 2. So I would have loved to say yes on that, but I said no because I thought that was best for this project and basically for our financials. So it's difficult to make decisions that aren't what people want to hear. The other thing I wanted to just say for the person who came up during the public comment first, I would like to get more information on the sober living houses and what the issue is and how it does impact the people. And there is one, down the street from me, which I think is the same sort of thing. It was supposed to be for medical issues, but I don't know, but I have had some inquiries into what that is. But we're not in the business of telling private homeowners what they can do, but there should be some sort of policy if they're having 12 people in a house where you don't. So I hope that we will hear more information about that as well. And along the same lines are the food vendors that we've seen, because we've been talking about, some kind of policy for the food vendors. The last city council meeting, we had closed session and I didn't leave here till after 11 o'clock. And the food vendor was open down there by the fire station, on Alamo Road. And I thought, my gosh, it's, 11:30 and you're here selling your food. So I would like more information on the sober living and on that. And along the same lines, I am happy that we will continue discussion of the Home Key project another time. And I did see in the notes that there were some changes made based on the recommendations that we made last time. So I'm looking forward to seeing that on a future agenda. So those are just comments about this. A couple of things that I did last week. We went to the Veterans Dinner for the National Director, and it was just a very interesting dinner and nice people to talk to who really care about veterans and what they can do for everyone. So they came from all over. People were from Monterey and other states. So it was really nice. And our Veterans Hall looks great because of all the work that the union apprenticeships have done for that. So, and some of our ARPA money as well. And Representative Mike Thompson's staff was here today, and there was a lot of people here during office hours between 2 and 4. So it was great to open up our city hall for people to be able to engage both positively and negatively, with our congressman. And then rain is coming in, so thanks to Public Works and all that they did during the last continued rain. And I think that, we saw the pictures of how hard they were working. So thank you to your staff and you for keeping us from flooding. So that's great. Thanks to Public Works. And then Dr. Chapman and I have been part of the the youth summit meeting they're planning for the youth for 7th grade to 12th grade. It's going to be in April, I think. And it's just wonderful because their motto is more social and less media. So the kids want to interact and get off their devices all the time. And it's just great to see these kids from PAL and other organizations, Boys and Girls Club and some other organizations, take leadership roles and trying to plan an event to help the other people in their group, have more positive interactions with each other. So that's just been kind of an uplifting thing. And tomorrow, given, providing the weather's good, I'm going to have an uplifting thing first thing in the morning with the watershed program with a 3rd grade group of kids from Payton School in probably gloves and a hat. So those are my reports for tonight.
Mr. City Manager, would you like to?
If I may,
respond?
Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, just to give the council an update on 2 of the items that Councilmember Wiley brought up. With regards to the vending subject, that is something that we're actively aware of and that we're, trying to gather as much information as we can to bring back to the council for discussion on, what is the appropriate measures to take on that. And I will just tell you, having lived through that process myself in other jurisdictions, a lot of different moving pieces to that. And obviously, a big component of that is what are we able to and not able to enforce. And so we want to make sure that we have, complete materials for you to discuss on that subject. So it might take a little bit extra homework, but we want to make sure that we bring you back a complete story. With regards to the sober living facility, that is something that we are actively exploring as well. I will tell you from my past experience in other jurisdictions, the laws at those times, they've been around for a long time. And the state, good, bad, or indifferently, does have rules that does allow certain types of facilities in residential neighborhoods that we don't really have a whole lot of ability to say otherwise. And so we are, again, our team that's comprised of many different departments that are impacted by this are looking into that deeply to make sure what, are the rules. We've reached out to this particular individual to make sure, that there's permits or no permits needed and what kind of licensing is necessary. So whatever control we do have, we will make sure that we are exercising that. But we're still trying to figure out just exactly what this is identified as or classified as and what is within our abilities to. So we'll keep the council informed of that as we continue forward with that, but we are aware of it and we are actively engaged in it.
Thank you. Do you have anything else? It is a difficult situation when we hear that from the public because one would think that there's just total local control. There just isn't, especially in these facilities. We've seen them throughout the state over the years. And that's sometimes hard when you have somebody who comes here and voicing a real concern. And I agree with you. We are very interested in understanding what that is because it's going to impact services, city services, sometimes police and fire, and then also in our residential neighborhood. Councilmember Freeman.
Yes. I had the opportunity, to go to League of Cities for new council members and new mayors. And it was a pretty good learning experience for me. I got a chance to meet a lot of people, interacted with a lot of people. Had a city manager and, he said you should try to meet 10 people a day. I said, well, I just got here 2 hours ago. I'm already past that, so.
Knowing you, yeah.
Yeah. But, one of the things that really caught my attention during one of the sessions that we had was the city of Malibu was up there, as was the city of Pacific Palisades. And they were in shambles and they were talking about their inability to interact with the rest of the council members because of Brown Act violations. And so they brought that up. And, she was just desperate. She's like, here's a time where our community is completely suffering. We are devastated. And yet I can't talk to my fellow council members to try to make things better for our community. And so it really struck a chord with me. And I know that when she got done with that conversation, you know, she said, "What do I do?" And they said, "Well, lobby the state assembly, lobby the, you know," and that was the response to it. And it just made me feel bad for that city, because that's when I feel like, you know, all of our cities should come together. So I just think it'd be something that would be good for us to take a look at, just have a conversation about, uh, for in the event that we had another catastrophic fire event, you know, that we could somehow suspend it. I mean, the state of California does it, right? During emergencies. So just something to think about.
Mr. City Manager?
So I appreciate the sentiment. I know that what we have done in the past is there's nothing that precludes the city council from calling a special meeting. So you can call an emergency meeting with, 24-hour notice and get the entire council. It obviously depends on the council's availability, of course, but there's nothing that prevents that from happening within a 24-hour notice period, that you can get them, in a forum such as this and discuss those concerns publicly.
And I would just add to that, that there is some provisions where you don't have to do 24-hour notice in an emergency like
But just
that,
listening to
so.
her, I could tell she was very shook up and, having a difficult time with it. So it just caught my attention. And just got to interact with some other city council members, mayors. It was just a really good event for me. So being green, and I had a sister that I got to go visit, and she was two blocks away from houses burning right around her. My niece lives in the canyons up above the Palisades. They lost a duplex that they owned, but their house survived. So anyways, and then the other thing is, just I can tell sometimes things get heated up here. And Michael, just to your comment about, I'm not looking to kill that thing. I'm looking to take care of I'm looking at it from a standpoint of, if it was me on the other side of that fence, what would I want, So I just see this fence coming down here and turning all around, and it's just going to be an empty lot for a while, and with no provision to move forward on it in the near future. And I just thought, well, let's get a wall put in there, So that's my motivation behind this is,
So,
can we find another way? We need to get a wall in there.
so yeah, and well, I'm gonna just cut off the conversations. Now we're talking about something that was on the item, but to the sentiment is that, just to convey the sentiment is what we've all heard, is we all have strong feelings and opinion. What was put out there is somehow there is some subversive undermining desire. And I wrote a note to myself not to talk about the issue, but the reality is I want to commend our commission. The Planning Commission made the decision on that, and it was unanimous, except for one abstention. The point is we ask our commissions to look at policy and code, and yet when it comes here as the appeal or whatever our business is, especially in a hearing, we may have the foresight that wasn't necessarily shared when you're trying to look at a policy issue. Because we may sit here and understand that maybe something isn't going to occur in 20 years. And that's why we have an appeal process. But I too would say my views in wanting to do something, if there is some belief that somehow that there is an intent to derail it, no. It's not coming, that's not my approach. My approach is specific, so please don't read that into that, all right? The goal is that this council has made a decision. It's about getting it across the finish line, correct? That's all. With that, we heard a discussion at Business from the Floor. While we don't really have a position on it yet, we know that the community is really concerned about battery storage. AB 303 is now being floated out there. The question, are you talking, are you doing? I can assure the public that those conversations are happening within city staff about how that would impact Vacaville. And so it is certainly being discussed statewide, probably city by city, and we are as well. I attended my first LAFCO meeting, and it was really nice to see at least the start of this new year. They meet bi-monthly. the initial commentary, and Aaron, you're in the house here, you were there. And it's nice when you're sitting there and joining a local area formation commission, which is certainly in the forefront of everything, and to hear praises about what Vacaville is doing, bringing forward, the economic piece, the EPS, as a model. And so it's nice when you're sitting up here and you're hearing things about the good things that are happening in your city. And so thank you. That's that comment. When I heard that, it's like, proud of Vacaville, thank you. I just want to make sure that all of you were aware from that meeting that the city of Vacaville, I represent a voting position on the commission. And for whatever reason, Justin, I'm looking to you, even though you had nothing to do with glory hole spill. But everyone wants to talk about that, and it's always fun, from a social media post, and it's kind of cool to look at. It's pretty epic. But again, it washes the slate clean. And how many years has it been since it spilled? 2019. So we have 5 or 6 years we've been banking basically water, if you will, and now that goes to zero. So more of that will be discussed at this week's. Tomorrow night I have STA, and then on Thursday it'll be a discussion at the Solano County Water Authority, and I'm sure there'll be an update on that, right? So, but you had nothing to do with it, so. But I do appreciate the fact that for all the work, even through these rains, some of us watch the elevations of the creeks and the waters. I still do. I go in that, and it's really nice to see those water lines stay low. So we're not out of the long-term concerns. We certainly have the basins that are in front of us to make sure that we protect them. With that, we're going to go ahead and close the public portion of this meeting. We do have closed session tonight. There will be nothing to report out. So with that, good night, Vacaville. This meeting is adjourned.